Chapter 211. Super Enforcer. For the human race to rise, it's not just the god race. I'm afraid none of the myriad races would agree. After venting his anger, Shura Shah suddenly spoke coldly. For tens of thousands of years, the myriad races had kept the human race a taboo, to the point where most races didn't even know what the human race was. Why? It was to completely erase the influence of the human race. How could they accept the human race's resurgence? Although he didn't know much about the human race, given his status, he naturally knew some secrets. Legend had it that the human race was the spirit of all things. Therefore, only the human race could advance beyond the god level, to transcend the universe. But for the myriad races, like the god race, the god level was already the limit. To reach beyond the god level, there was only one way: to steal the human race's opportunity. This made it even more impossible to allow the human race to rise. Hearing Shura Shah's words, Zhan felt a headache coming on. Who the hell said the Shura race were all battle-crazed fools? This one was quite smart and insightful. Indeed, our human race's ancestral star has been occupied by the myriad races, and the entire human race is now in exile. Since he was dealing with a smart person, there was no need to beat around the bush. They could be straightforward. But the myriad races that attacked our ancestral star did not include your Shura race. Therefore, I believe we can be friends. Hee, friends are unnecessary. The Shura race has no friends, only comrades in arms. Shura Shah said directly. And the Shura will not become comrades with any other race. However, you helped me temporarily break free from control, which is indeed a favor. As long as it doesn't violate my beliefs, I can help you. Temporarily broke free from control? Zhan asked in confusion. That's right. This world exists independently of the universe, so it isolates any connection with the universe, and naturally, it can cut off the control. But if I leave this world, I will still be controlled, Shura Shah said frankly. Good grief. This was like handing Zhan his own weakness. It seemed that no matter how smart the Shura race was, their inherent nature wouldn't change. They wouldn't use any schemes or tricks. Battle was the only way they solved problems. Zhan liked cooperating with such individuals. He was a mentally challenged necromancer, not good at scheming. All along, he preferred to let his fists do the talking. In a sense, he and the Shura race were quite compatible. Since the other party was so sincere, Zhan naturally had to offer a little sincerity in return. Then how can you be completely freed from control? There is no way. The god race has a soul master who controls the laws of the soul. He directly imprinted a part of his own life's soul mark on my soul. There is only one way to remove this imprint. Kill that soul master. Soul master? What level? God level. Okay, then there's really no way to remove it, at least not for now. One of the most powerful beings of the god race, even if the Shura race's strongest Shura king came, he probably wouldn't be able to kill him. So Shura Shah was right when he said there was no way to remove it. God-level beings were extremely difficult to kill. In a sense, they were already immortal. Over tens of thousands of years, the number of God-level beings killed could be counted on one hand. Most of them had exhausted their lifespans and died of old age. So Shura Shah's only chance was to wait for that soul master to die of old age. That would take thousands or tens of thousands of years. The thought alone was despairing. Don't worry, one day, I will exterminate the entire god race, Zhan said with overwhelming dominance. Shura Shah was naturally non-committal. Even a protagonist of his era wouldn't dare to say such words. Why did the god race harm him? Wasn't it because they were truly afraid of him growing up and threatening the god race's dominant position? Since you'll be controlled again if you go out, how can you help me? The soul imprint won't be triggered immediately. After going out, I estimate I can suppress it for about 10 minutes. Shura Shah responded directly. 10 minutes? Zhan was quite satisfied. This was already very good, at least much more durable than number one. Then what are your principles? Don't kill the weak. Don't kill my own kind. No problem. Zhan agreed immediately. The weak didn't need this one to deal with. Within this world, you can move freely, but I must warn you, killing is forbidden here. Otherwise, you understand the consequences. Also, if you want to go out and get some fresh air, you can also notify me. I will find a place to let you out. Withdrawing his consciousness from the new world, Lu Zhan was in a great mood. This was equivalent to him recruiting a super enforcer, and one that didn't require a salary. But he lived in the new world, so roughly speaking, it was like paying rent. What was Shura Shah's strength? Invincible below the emperor level, and even against ordinary emperors, he wouldn't be afraid. Such a super enforcer was a huge gain. Lu Zhan was still excited when he heard a knock on the door. He composed himself and said, "Come in." The door opened, and Bai Hua entered, followed by the 3 immortal women. "Your Majesty, the human emperor, this servant is Zhan. Your Majesty, the human emperor, this servant is Cho Chong." The 2 immortal women Lu Zhan didn't know yet introduced themselves. "What is it, Bai Hua? Is there something you need?" Lu Zhan nodded and asked casually, "Your Majesty, the human emperor, you should already know the purpose of this servant. I am here to serve you." At this moment, Bai Hua completely lacked the aura of a lord-level powerhouse, exuding an alluring charm. For immortal women, Bai Hua was mature, Miao Xin was cute, Zhan was pure, and Cho Chong was a mature beauty. For different temperaments, standing right in front of you, which man could resist? Lu Zhan could. He said directly, "There's no need to rush this. Your Majesty, the human emperor, time is of the essence. We need to increase your strength as soon as possible." Bai Hua urged. "What? You want to make decisions for me?" Lu Zhan said coldly. He hadn't fully trusted the immortal clan, and Bai Hua's eagerness to get close to him made him even more suspicious. Did she want to drain him dry, or harvest his kidneys? "I wouldn't dare." Bai Hua quickly said, "Your Majesty, the human emperor, this servant was wrong. Then this servant will withdraw. When you need us, you can call us." Then, she quickly led the 3 immortal women out. But before they could even exit the door, they heard Lu Zhan's voice. "You withdraw, the 3 of them stay." Lu Zhan couldn't handle a 1,000-year-old lord-level demoness, but he believed he could handle 3 small brave-level immortal women. With her back to Lu Zhan, Bai Hua couldn't help but frown, but she quickly responded, "Yes, Your Majesty, the human emperor." With that, she exited the room and closed the door. Inside the room, tens of thousands of words were completely deleted. This refers to the author skipping over the intimate scene. Chapter 212, Sacrifice and Evolution. In front of the Pinduoduo department store. At this moment, it was extremely lively, surrounded by a large number of creatures. Slash. Just one more slash and you'll succeed. Who else is there? Just one more slash and you can kill it. The last slash, really the last slash. Whoever can kill this pig can withdraw 100,000 star coins from this store. No tricks. At the entrance, a demon with a human body and a dog's head shouted loudly. Beside him, a pig-like creature was tied up, covered in knife wounds, looking on the verge of death. What kind of creature is that? Lu Zhan, disguised, was also among the onlookers, watching this performance with great interest. Young Master Lu, to be honest, that's a special race of our demon clan, the Undying Pig Demon. Beside him, Liang Feng spoke cautiously. This guy has no other abilities, but it has thick skin and is practically immortal. Don't be fooled by its dying appearance, it's all an act. It's far from death, and the knives provided by Pinduoduo are also specially made. No matter how strong you are, you can only cause a certain amount of damage. I estimate it would take about 10,000 more slashes to kill this undying pig. 10,000 slashes. These weren't free slashes. Each slash cost 100 star coins. This was a complete scam to make money. As expected of Pinduoduo. How's the inquiry about that thing going? Lu Zhan asked. There was no need for the 2 of them to be sneaky. In this chaotic place, no one would pay attention to 2 passers-by. Young Master Lu, please forgive me. I've done my best, but the elder doesn't know what it is either. He only knows that they need to snatch a corpse. Liang Feng quickly said. Lu Zhan nodded, saying nothing more. Liang Feng waited quietly, not daring to speak, but his heart was about to explode with anxiety. He thought Lu Zhan was dissatisfied with this answer, but he had truly used every means to inquire, and for this, he had even offered his snake chrysanthemum. That's right. The elder leading the team had some unusual preferences and had been coveting him for a long time. Liang Feng was, after all, a genius in the top 100 of the genius ranking, and he was also fair-skinned and tender, with a smooth snake body. Thinking of this, Liang Feng felt a dull pain in his chrysanthemum, feeling extremely wronged. Lu Zhan naturally didn't know that this guy beside him had made such a huge sacrifice. Otherwise, he would have to show great respect. In fact, he didn't doubt Liang Feng's statement. He was just thinking about what the corpse could be. Earlier, he had already asked Bai Hua. The answer he received was also a corpse, and she didn't know the specifics. This way of speaking suggested that both Bai Hua and the elder of the demon clan were only acting as scouts. The main force might not have even appeared yet. Lord-level scouts meant that when the time came, an emperor-level being might personally appear. What kind of identity would that corpse have? Thinking of this, even Lu Zhan couldn't help but take a deep breath. Young Master Lu. After a moment, Liang Feng finally couldn't take it anymore. For some reason, he felt that standing next to Lu Zhan at this moment was even more stressful than standing next to the demon clan's ancestor. It was too damn torturous for a demon. Lu Zhan finally reacted and said, "Let's go. Let's take a walk." There was no need to worry about what the corpse was for now. Currently, his biggest task was still to increase his strength. If his strength wasn't enough, even if he figured out what the corpse was, he wouldn't be able to participate. As for how to increase his strength, it was simple. Kill. Ah Feng, what rank is your leading elder among lord-level beings? Lu Zhan patted Liang Feng's shoulder as they walked, speaking in a friendly and cordial manner. And besides him, how many others from your demon clan have come? Liang Feng's whole body trembled, and he quickly said, "The elder has been a lord for over 500 years, and his strength is extremely formidable. He has even survived encounters with emperor-level beings from strong races. Besides the elder, another lord-level being from the demon clan has come." 2 lord-level beings? Lu Zhan's eyes immediately lit up. This demon clan scouting force was a bit strong. Of course, with Shurasha around, he naturally wasn't afraid. It was just that it was inconvenient to make a move in this camp, as it might attract emperor-level beings, which would be troublesome. He needed to find a way to lure the demon clan out. As for this arduous task, it naturally had to be entrusted to Liang Feng. Inside the palace, Lu Zhan had already made this palace his temporary residence on planet 88. It was quite safe, with Bai Hua and the 3 immortal women guarding it. Bai Hua's strength was quite reliable. Lu Zhan saw Bai Hua at the door, dressed revealingly, leaning against the door frame, her eyes staring straight at him, as if to say, "Come over here." As for what to do after going over, of course, it was to do. Lu Zhan looked straight ahead, ignoring the old demoness, and returned to his room. This old demoness was always trying to seduce him. It was abnormal. Bai Hua pulled up her clothes, inwardly questioning herself. What was going on? Had her charm declined? Back in the day, she, Bai Hua, was also the flower of the immortal clan. Back in the room, just as Lu Zhan lay down on the bed, a voice suddenly sounded in his mind. "Master, I want to eat." It was number one's voice. Lu Zhan's consciousness entered the soul space. In the soul space, besides number one, there was also a huge scorpion. It was the vice pavilion master of the upper immortal pavilion. This was Lu Zhan's first lord-level corpse turned into an undead, and a strong one among lords. The attributes were so magnificent that Lu Zhan couldn't bear to sacrifice it, and had to keep it to admire. As for number one, his eyes were fixed on the giant scorpion, almost drooling. "Eat, eat, eat. All you know is how to eat." Lu Zhan looked at number one and cursed. Then he sighed, all right, I'll let you eat it. Who told you to be my precious?" Currently, number one's commander-level strength was already somewhat insufficient. Every battle required him to stack up attributes for half a day beforehand. At critical moments, there was no time for it to stack. It was indeed time for it to evolve. He had already fed it a lot, and feeding it this giant scorpion had a high chance of allowing number one to directly evolve. Since he had already decided, Lu Zhan didn't hesitate. With a thought, the massive scorpion undead slowly disappeared, entering number one's body. After a moment, the scorpion's corpse completely vanished, and in Lu Zhan's mind, a voice sounded, as expected. "Ding, your undead has entered the evolution period. Time. 48 hours. Please wait patiently." It would take 48 hours. Lu Zhan was somewhat dissatisfied. "Lord Monarch, are you there?" "Lord Monarch, how about another drop?" Lord Monarch, just like last time. The thing that made number 1 directly evolve, could you give another drop? Lord Monarch? Damn, she was ignoring him. Zhan was furious. Dead woman, are you there or not? In the next second, an incredibly terrifying aura of death descended, and Zhan felt his heart stop, as if he had fallen into hell. But soon, his heart started beating again. The undead monarch naturally wouldn't really kill him, just threaten and scare him. Zhan wasn't worried at all. He had already grasped this dead woman. If you don't help, then don't help, but don't get an attitude. Forget it. He'd just wait for number 1 to evolve on his own. Chapter 213, Chaos Erupts. Tongfu Pavilion. Planet 88, a hotel specially built for humanoid creatures. At this moment, Liang Feng, looking excited, rushed into a guest room. But in the next second, a powerful aura pressed down, forcing Liang Feng to the ground, accompanied by a cold snort from the bed. What is this? Not even knocking, no manners. Liang Feng, lying on the ground, cursed inwardly. Last night he was called Sweetie, and now he was called, what is this? This old thing was ruthless. However, although he cursed inwardly, his words were full of fear. Elder, please forgive me. Little Yangzi was too excited and forgot to knock. Elder, little Yangzi has extremely important news to report. After a moment, an elderly person dressed in red clothes sat up on the bed, looking as if he were on his last legs. However, his aura was terrifyingly powerful. He was the elder of the demon clan, a lord-level powerhouse, Hong Tang. Since they had slept together, Hong Tang naturally wouldn't punish him too severely, raising his hand and saying, "Get up, speak. What is it? If it doesn't satisfy me, you know the consequences." Liang Feng didn't stand up, but crawled to Hong Tang's feet, saying excitedly, "Elder, guess what I discovered?" "What?" Hong Tang asked listlessly. In this damned place, the chaotic Star Sea, there was nothing interesting, just fighting and killing. He was tired of it and missed his male pets at home. Liang Feng lowered his voice, his eyes gleaming, and uttered 2 words, "Human Emperor." The expression on Hong Tang's face instantly froze, his eyes staring intently at Liang Feng, as if trying to see any sign of lying. But unfortunately, Liang Feng's acting skills had long been honed to perfection. Moreover, he was telling the truth. He had indeed seen the Human Emperor. The Human Emperor was rescued by the undead monarch, the undead monarch. Hong Tang suddenly remembered that there seemed to be a race in the chaotic Star Sea that believed in the undead monarch. So, it was very possible. The undead monarch had really placed the Human Emperor in this chaotic Star Sea. Where? Confirming that Liang Feng was not lying, Hong Tang's breathing became rapid and his face flushed. Liang Feng didn't answer, but said hesitantly, "Elder, shouldn't we inform the Demon Emperor?" "There's no need," Hong Tang said directly. That Human Emperor's strength is indeed quite good, able to kill Shang-Yin, which was unexpected by all races. But no matter how strong Shang-Yin was, he was only a commander, a world of difference compared to me. There's no need to disturb the Demon Emperor. We just need to capture him and offer him to the Demon Emperor. Seeing Liang Feng still hesitating, Hong Tang became even more anxious, patiently explaining, "Little Fengzi, if we can capture that Human Emperor, it will be a great contribution to the Demon Clan. At that time, even the Demon God will reward us. But if it's just a report, Little Fengzi, you should understand which choice is better." Liang Feng seemed to struggle for a moment, then made up his mind, saying, "Elder, then I'll listen to you. With your strength, capturing the Human Emperor is a piece of cake." But he sneered inwardly. He had long understood Hong Tang's personality, and his hesitation just now was just an act. He knew all along that the other party would not inform the Demon Emperor. Because Hong Tang had an extremely perverted collecting hobby, and what did he collect? Naturally, it was men on men. Like Liang Feng, who had already become one of his collectibles. And the dignified Human Emperor, in Hong Tang's eyes, was a peerless treasure that needed to have his chrysanthemum thoroughly exploded. If he was captured by the Demon Emperor, he probably wouldn't even be able to touch a hair on the Human Emperor. Of course, all of this was based on Hong Tang's absolute confidence in his own strength. "Let's go. Time is of the essence, Little Fengzi. Take me to the Human Emperor now." "Elder, To avoid any accidents, should we bring Elder Lan along? Hong Tang thought for a moment. Lan Ran was also his man, so bringing him along was fine. And the other party was, after all, the human emperor, who might have some special means. Bringing Lan Ran would ensure absolute certainty. All right, I'll go call little Lan. The upper immortal pavilion. The dignified pavilion master knelt on the ground, motionless. And in the air, there was a distorted and pained ethereal figure. That was his soul, the most important thing for a member of the god race. To be able to become the pavilion master of the upper immortal pavilion, his strength was undoubtedly at the half-step emperor level, just a step away from becoming an emperor. However, such a powerhouse had his soul tortured like this, without any ability to resist. This was because the one taking action was the supreme existence of the god race, the soul master. After nearly 5 minutes of torture, the pavilion master's soul, as if it had lost control, fell back into his body. Thud. The dignified half-emperor level powerhouse collapsed on the ground, trembling uncontrollably, his face completely drained of color. However, the pavilion master quickly forced himself to get up and said gratefully, "Thank you, Divine Master, for sparing my life." Hunting Hound number 1 was not only a powerful hound, but also a matter of great importance. That was the number 1 genius of the Shura race. If the Shura race found out the truth, those lunatics would really go mad. At that time, even the god race would suffer greatly. There are only 2 possibilities for breaking free from my control. One is complete death, and the other is entering a space outside the universe. A majestic voice sounded in the air. If it were death, my imprint would return. Then it can only have entered a space outside the entire universe, creating a different space where all races can survive. Even we god-level beings cannot do that. But on that day, that human emperor did it, taking away the beings of the ancestral star. That was a method left behind by the ancient human emperors. In that case, it is very likely that Hunting Hound number 1 was rescued by the human emperor. The human emperor is in this chaotic star sea. In just a moment, the soul master had deduced most of the truth. Do not spread this matter. The soul master's voice trembled slightly, uncharacteristically excited. If the god race could capture the human emperor and even obtain that different world, then when the spiritual treasury descended in the future, the god race would receive great benefits. The spiritual treasury was originally a treasure trove opened for the human race, which was also the biggest reason why the myriad races wanted to exterminate the human race. Otherwise, when the spiritual treasury opened, the human race would undoubtedly be the biggest beneficiary, while the myriad races would only get some scraps. Transcending the god level would be a pipe dream. But that wasn't actually the best way. If they could control the human race, then all the benefits the human race received in the spiritual treasury would be intercepted by the god race. The god race would replace the human race as the biggest winner, and he, the soul master, had a very high probability of advancing beyond the god level, becoming immortal and truly the supreme ruler of the universe. And at this moment, a voice suddenly sounded, filled with a threatening tone. "Soul, you've crossed the line." "Hee Chaos, I was just passing by. I'll be leaving now." The soul master didn't mind, and his aura disappeared. This chaotic star sea also had a god-level being, known as the Chaos Master, who naturally would not allow other god-level beings to set foot in it. Chapter 214. No Place Like Home. The Palace. Fu, do you like your life now? In the new world. Lu Zhan sat directly on the roof, with Zhang Tianfu beside him. "I love it, Brother Lu. Let me tell you, the new world is developing really well now. It's even better than Earth was before. The air is fresh, the birds are singing, the flowers are fragrant, and people are loving and peaceful, coexisting harmoniously." Zhang Tianfu's face was beaming with happiness. Just a few days ago, he had even found a girl in the new world, experiencing the taste of love for a rare time, making him feel the urge to marry and settle down. Then, if you had to stay in the new world forever, would you be willing? Lu Zhan asked, his tone somewhat heavy. All along, he had seemed to live a carefree and arrogant life. But Huang Shengren had almost placed the burden of the entire human race on his shoulders, regardless of whether he could bear it. Now, leading all of humanity on the run, he felt a constant sense of crisis. If he died, it wouldn't just be him. It would be the entire human race. Sometimes, he had the thought of hiding the world ring somewhere no one could find it, and letting humanity just survive in the new world. Brother Liu, that won't do. However, Zhang Tianfu's face instantly became serious, as if he had guessed Liu Zhan's thoughts. He quickly said, Brother Liu, I'm just a rough guy. I can't preach any great truths. But I know one saying, no matter how good it is outside, there's no place like home. Haha, well said. Liu Zhan patted the other's shoulder, stood up, and laughed loudly. All right, then I'll lead you all to take back our home. He looked into the distance. There, two powerful auras were rapidly approaching. The fish had taken the bait. Two elders, the human emperor is over there. Not far away, Liang Feng said excitedly. Hong Tang naturally saw the palace and the two people on the roof. He hadn't participated in the previous attack on the ancestral star. But at this moment, the appearance of the human emperor had already spread throughout the myriad races. How could Hong Tang not recognize that face? It really was the human emperor. Hong Tang was instantly excited and roared, Lan Ran, expand your domain. Don't let him escape. The next second, Lan Ran beside him revealed his true form, a gigantic spider, opening its massive maw. Countless spider silks shot out, enveloping the entire sky. After a moment, the entire area within 500 meters of the palace was covered in spider silk. This was Lan Ran's innate ability, spider domain. Within this domain, no creature could escape, unless Lan Ran was killed. At the same time, Lan Ran trembled, and countless small spiders fell from his body, crawling towards the palace, densely packed and terrifying. And Hong Tang wasn't idle either. To avoid any accidents, he also revealed his true form as soon as he made his move. It was a giant, fiery red fox, with 9 tails fluttering towards the sky. On the roof of the palace, Liu Zhan saw this scene and couldn't help but feel a sense of déjà vu. Good grief, another 9-tailed fox? This scene seemed familiar. Inside the palace, Bai Hua naturally sensed these two auras and burst out of the door. Seeing the two great demons in the sky, her expression also changed. Hong Tang, Lan Ran. Lord-level beings were considered absolute high-level powerhouses among the myriad races. There were only so many of them, and aside from some hidden ones, most were well known throughout the universe. Bai Hua naturally recognized these two demons. Hong Tang, what are you doing? Bai Hua flew into the sky and shouted angrily. These two demons were clearly up to no good. Seeing Immortal Master Bai Hua, Hong Tang was also slightly stunned. Bai Hua of the Immortal Clan, why are you colluding with the human emperor? Then he realized, haha, I understand. The Immortal Clan are traitors to the myriad races. No wonder I heard that the Immortal Clan didn't participate in the attack on the ancestral star. The dignified Immortal Clan, colluding with the human race, how shameless, how depraved. Liu Zhan didn't like hearing this. How was forming a united front with the human race depraved? It was clearly aligning with the great Tao. Humph. Bai Hua flew to the roof, standing in front of Liu Zhan, determined to protect the human emperor with her life. She sneered and said directly, Hong Tang, don't forget where you demons came from. You have human race genes flowing in your bodies. Nonsense. That's just a rumor. Hong Tang's already fiery red body instantly turned even redder, clearly triggered and defensive. A rumor had always circulated among the myriad races that the demon race was just the result of ancient human race powerhouses being bored and injecting some of their own genes into animals. If it was true, it could only be said that the ancient human race, as the supreme rulers of the universe, were really very bored. I'm too lazy to waste words with you. Hee Bai Hua, I've long wanted to taste you. Hong Tang clearly didn't want to engage in a verbal battle. He chuckled, and the giant fox's body instantly emitted a peculiar fragrance, rapidly spreading throughout the spider silk domain. He usually preferred males, but he didn't mind tasting a female. Moreover, if he drained Bai Hua, his strength would increase greatly. Normally, in the outside world, he wouldn't dare to make a move, even if he wanted to. The Immortal Clan's apparent strength was much greater than the Demon Clan's, not to mention their hidden strength. But this was the chaotic Star Sea, a place where strength reigned supreme. His side had 2 Lord-level beings. They didn't fear Bai Hua alone. Your Majesty, the human emperor, be careful. This is that lewd fox's lewd scent. Don't let it get close, or you'll lose your reason and become a slave to desire. As for which desire, it was obvious. Hua quickly warned, while releasing her immortal aura to resist the lewd scent. This was what made Hong Tang terrifying. Fighting him required constantly diverting some strength to resist this scent. A slight lapse in concentration, and you would be caught. It's quite boring. Zhan smiled. What was wrong with the demon race? They were all using such underhanded methods. Fighting such a guy was an insult to his identity as the human emperor. In that case, he'd make it quick. Zhan's consciousness entered the new world, looking at Shura Sha. To his surprise, this guy was actually sparring with Jiazhang. Saying sparring was an exaggeration, it was actually teaching Jiazhang. This blood-saber old ancestor was also a super lunatic, reckless in battle, clearly to Shura Sha's liking. For a battle maniac like him, staying in the new world doing nothing was more painful than death. Teaching someone to fight like this was a way to alleviate his desire for battle. Shura Sha, are you free to help me kill 2 demons? Lord level demons clearly didn't violate Shura Sha's principles. Let me out quickly. Hearing the voice, the already itching Shura Sha couldn't hold back any longer, his fighting spirit soaring to the heavens. Chapter 215. The Terror of Shura Sha. Brother Hong, I feel something is wrong. In the sky, Lan Ran suddenly spoke with a hint of terror. There's danger, extreme danger. He had an extremely special ability called Spider Sense. Whenever there was danger, this ability would react. The greater the danger, the stronger the reaction. And at this moment, he felt his entire body tense to the extreme, a reaction he had never experienced before. Death. Only the threat of death could cause such a reaction in him. Thinking of this, Lan Ran no longer cared about anything else and roared, Brother Hong, run quickly. With a boom, the massive body of the 9-tailed celestial fox instantly transformed into a red lightning bolt, about to flee into the distance. Hong Tang was an extremely selfish person and didn't easily trust others. But in the entire universe, there was only one being he trusted completely, Lan Ran. Red and blue were always a pair, and Lan Ran had risked his life to save him countless times. And Hong Tang also completely trusted Lan Ran's spider sensibility. However, it was already too late. Hong Tang had only flown a few hundred meters when a black figure appeared in front of him, filled with an incomparably terrifying aura. Just that aura made Hong Tang feel as if he had fallen into hell, the fear in his heart rising like a tide. You. Who are you? Only enough for me to play for a minute. Boring? Shura Sha was shrouded in killing intent, making it impossible to see his figure clearly. His aura was even stronger and more terrifying than before. The Soul Master's imprint not only controlled his soul, but also suppressed his strength. And at this moment, the imprint was temporarily suppressed, and the terrifying aura of the strongest being below the Emperor level erupted completely. It was utterly terrifying. Just then, from the sky, countless spider silks swept towards Shura Sha, instantly forming a spider silk cocoon, completely enveloping him. Brother Hong, you go. I'll hold him off. Lan Ran roared, full of love and loyalty, deciding to sacrifice himself to save his lover. Hong Tang didn't hesitate, about to flee immediately. Himph, did I tell you to move? But in the next second, a cold snort came from within the spider silk cocoon. Then, a burst of black energy shot into the sky, instantly breaking through the spider silk and heading straight for Hong Tang. Haha, 2 together. Now I can play for 3 minutes. Shura Sha roared. Shura barrier. Instantly, a black barrier formed, enveloping Shura Sha, Lan Ran, and Hong Tang, the 3 powerhouses. So strong, as expected of the former number 1 genius. On the roof of the palace, Hua looked at the scene, her face pale, and couldn't help but mutter. If it were Shura Sha in this state, she would have been chopped to pieces long ago. She couldn't help but speak. Your Majesty, the human emperor, I didn't expect you to be able to bring Shura Sha under your command. How did you do it? Earlier, when Shura Sha had disappeared, she had been completely baffled. She thought the human emperor had some special means to make him disappear. But she never expected Shura Sha to suddenly appear, seemingly as Zhan's enforcer. This was too damn crazy. Don't ask what you shouldn't ask. Lu Zhan said indifferently. At this moment, Liang Feng, looking devout, flew over and knelt before Lu Zhan. Your Majesty, the human emperor, Liang Feng has not failed your mission and has successfully completed the task you assigned. This guy played the role of a double agent, so naturally, there was no sense of incongruity. At this point, having harmed 2 Lord-level powerhouses of the demon clan, even without the threat of becoming an undead, Liang Feng had no way back. He could only grit his teeth and follow the human emperor to the bitter end. Race? Was it important? It wasn't important. Survival was the most important thing. Besides, the human race was the ancestor of all races. He was just returning to his roots, a completely wise choice. Liang Feng had successfully convinced himself. Well done, little Liangzi. Lu Zhan walked over, a smile on his face, and helped Liang Feng up. In the future, when my human race returns to the top of the universe, you will be the ancestor of the demon clan, commanding the entire demon clan. Thank you, human emperor. Liang Feng knelt down again, looking excited, but cursing inwardly. Big promises. What damn big promises? After a moment, a huge figure suddenly flew out of the Shura barrier, heading towards Lu Zhan. It was the giant spider, Lan Ran. However, Lan Ran was now gasping for air, not even a tenth of his life left. This was naturally Lu Zhan's arrangement. He had specifically requested Shura Shah not to kill directly, but to beat them half to death so he could kill them. How could Lu Zhan possibly miss out on that massive heavenly reward? Shura Shah had no reason to refuse. His intention was just to fight, so whether or not he killed them didn't matter that much. Lu Zhan drew Blood Requiem and flew forward, slashing at the giant spider. With a boom, after the energy exploded, the heavenly reward arrived as expected. Lu Zhan clearly felt his strength growing. This feeling was too damn good. Then, Lu Zhan saw the giant spider's corpse. For love, this giant spider had finally sacrificed his life, yet he still couldn't save his lover. Lu Zhan couldn't help but feel a sense of respect for this great love. Therefore, he threw the giant spider into the new world. It was time to feed Dawang, Bei Lao He, and the others. These days, these mutated beasts were starving, almost going crazy. They were used to delicacies, and they wouldn't even look at the brave level and below food Lu Zhan threw in. A dignified Lord-level powerhouse should be able to shut their mouths. These mutated beasts were still worth cultivating. Especially the panda, Gun Gun, its upper limit was extremely high. As long as it had enough to eat, Lu Zhan even suspected that this guy could directly eat its way to the emperor level. One had to know that advancing to the emperor level was extremely difficult. There might not even be one emperor in 10,000 lords. Like Bai Hua and Hong Tang, unless they encountered a great opportunity, they were basically out of the running for emperor. And this panda just needed to keep eating. It could infuriate the powerhouses of the myriad races. Besides Gun Gun, as for Dawang, Bei Lao He, and the others, not to mention the emperor level, reaching Bai Hua's level shouldn't be a problem. At that time, they would also be extremely strong combat forces. For Lu Zhan now, apart from number 1, the other undead could be said to be consumables, not worth spending a lot of effort to cultivate. It was more worthwhile to cultivate these mutated beasts. Inside the new world. Woof woof woof, it's here. It's finally here. Roar roar roar, I knew it, good brother Lu Zhan wouldn't forget me. Oh woo oh woo oh woo, it smells so good. So good. This big spider smells so good. I can't resist. Ing ing ing, each of you get a spider leg, the rest is mine. With that, Gun Gun climbed onto the spider's body and took a bite out of its head. Chapter 216, Slaughter. Shura Shah. You are Shura Shah. Inside the Shura domain, Hong Tang finally discovered who his opponent was. How could he not know the name of the number 1 genius of all time? Speaking of which, Hong Tang was from roughly the same era as Shura Shah. However, even discovering Shura Shah's identity didn't help. It only made the other party's attacks even more fierce. Hong Tang tried to resist, but found it completely useless. Why? They were both Lord level. How could the gap be so big? He couldn't even self-destruct. In just 3 seconds, his 9 tails were all chopped off, and he was kicked out of the Shura domain, naked, his life force constantly draining. Just as he was about to die, a terrifying sword energy slashed towards his back, completely ending him. This sword energy was naturally unleashed by Zhan. After killing this lewd fox, he directly put it into the new world, also feeding it to those mutated beasts. If the myriad races knew he was using 2 top-tier lord-level powerhouses as food for animals, they would probably be shocked. The corpses of such powerhouses had many uses. If auctioned in the chaotic star sea, they could fetch an astronomical price of at least 1,000,000 star coins. Instantly, the heavenly reward descended again. However, Zhan frowned. This reward was a bit small, even less than the giant spider just now. But this was normal. According to his understanding, the amount of the reward was based on the difference in strength. As his strength increased, the rewards for killing lord-level beings would definitely decrease. Then what should he do? It seemed he needed to kill emperor-level beings. Zhan was a little distressed. In front of him, the Shura domain instantly disappeared, and Shura Shah's figure quickly approached, looking somewhat troubled, as if he was in great discomfort. Clearly, the Soul Master's imprint was issuing control commands. Zhan didn't hesitate, directly letting him enter the new world. Happy cooperation, Brother Shura Shah. This great battle had started quickly and ended just as quickly. The 3 powerhouses in the battle had all disappeared. Little Yangzi, you did well this time. I'm also a reasonable person, so I'll take back this contract. Zhan patted Liang Feng's shoulder, pretending to release a bit of death aura. As for the future, you have to choose your own path. Liang Feng was a good double agent. It would be a pity to kill him. It was better to just send him back to the Demon Clan. He might even be useful in the future. Thank you, Your Majesty, the human emperor. Liang Feng was clearly a smart person and quickly understood Zhan's meaning. He knelt down again and said gratefully, Your Majesty, the human emperor, I will return to the Demon Clan first. In the future, if you have any orders, Liang Feng will not refuse. Although Liang Feng is in the Demon Clan, my heart will always be with Your Majesty, the human emperor. All right, get lost. Do you think I'll believe that nonsense? Zhan snorted coldly and kicked this guy away. Liang Feng also took advantage of the momentum to fly into the distance. After this poisonous snake left, Zhan returned directly to the palace, as if he didn't care about anything. Above, Bai Hua's eyes flickered. For the first time, she felt that this human emperor's terror far exceeded her imagination. She naturally knew Liang Feng, a genius in the top 100, but she couldn't understand how the other party had become the human emperor's dog. Inside the palace, Zhan didn't stay idle either. After having a workout session with the several immortal women, he rested well and then left the palace alone. Bai Hua wanted to follow, but Zhan directly refused. He always felt that this old immortal woman had ulterior motives, constantly trying to seduce him, and also trying to trick him into going directly to the immortal clan's territory. She said that the immortal clan's territory was full of immortal women waiting for him to pick. If he pleasured all the immortal women, Zhan might even be able to become a god right there on the bed. One had to know that there were 2 or 3 emperor-level immortal women, truly old antiques, at least 10,000 years old. Honestly, Zhan would be lying if he said he wasn't tempted. But he knew a principle. There's no such thing as a free lunch. Even if the immortal clan was really a backup left by the ancient human emperors, they couldn't possibly selflessly dedicate everything to him. After leaving the palace, Zhan sneaked away and left planet 88. Why had he come here? To buy information about the various planets in the chaotic star sea. Why buy information? So that when he was killing monsters to level up, he wouldn't accidentally encounter a tough opponent and suffer an unexpected defeat. But now that he had Shura Shah as a trump card, was there any need for information? Emperor-level beings, no matter where they were extremely respected, rare existences. And in this chaotic star sea, there couldn't be any Emperor-level beings on planets after number 50. So what was there to fear? The ones looking for him now were already top-tier Lord-level powerhouses. The next ones might be Emperors, so he needed to increase his strength as quickly as possible. He needed to make the powerhouses sent by the myriad races forever unable to keep up with his growing strength. After flying out of Planet 88, Zhan didn't stop, heading directly to the outer reaches of the chaotic star sea. Planet 100. The Star-Lord here was a dragon of the dragon race, namely Xing. This guy couldn't resist 100 years ago and secretly mounted a female behemoth of the behemoth race. and was immediately stripped of his dragon status and was to be drowned. Tarnishing the noble bloodline of the dragon race was an even greater sin than betraying the dragon race. Although the behemoth race was considered a strong race, in the eyes of the dragon race, they were still mongrels. Fortunately, at that time, the female behemoth used her life to buy him time to escape, and he managed to flee, naturally only able to escape to this chaotic star sea. Li Xing's strength wasn't strong, having only recently broken through to the Lord level. This was enough to dominate Planet 100. Honestly, Li Xing quite liked his current life. He could mount whoever he wanted, regardless of their race. Over the past few decades, Planet 100 was almost full of his bastards. It could really be said that one dragon created an entire planet. This planet was completely his private territory, and normally, no other powerhouses would come. Weaker ones? Males were killed directly, and females were captured to become his planet-pressing consorts. However, today, Planet 100 had an uninvited guest. Who are you? Li Xing looked at the humanoid figure in the sky, his huge dragon eyes filled with solemnity. The other party did nothing, yet he felt an incredibly strong pressure. Haha, don't worry, I'm just here to level up. Relax. Zhan said with a smile, summoning the undead of the heavenly demon general. Then he drew Blood Requiem and unleashed a slash. The creatures on this planet had no feud with him or the human race. Most of them had probably never even heard of the human race. But so what? Who told them to belong to the myriad races, and he, the human emperor, would receive rewards for killing any of the myriad races. Although these creatures were a bit weak, and the rewards were very small, they would add up. With a boom, the bloody sword energy erupted. Li Xing was completely unable to resist, and his huge dragon body instantly exploded. Half an hour later, Zhan flew out of Planet 100 expressionlessly, heading to the next stop, Planet 99. Chapter 217. The Unprecedented Wanted Poster. Planet 88, Chaotic Star Sea. Star Sea Maze City, the entertainment hub of the entire Planet 88. No matter your race or biological form, you could find something to eat, drink, and enjoy here. At this moment, the main hall was packed with people, buzzing with conversation, a scene of utter liveliness. Those in the hall were naturally the lowest rung of society on this planet, individuals with no hope or ambition in the chaotic Star Sea, essentially just existing to eat, drink, and wait for death. Their greatest pleasure, naturally, was all kinds of gossip. Have you heard? There's a madman running rampant in the chaotic Star Sea lately, slaughtering those low-level planets. Rumor has it he has a super army, but it's hidden without a trace. No one knows how he does it. Latest news, he's already wiped out planets 100 to 87, leaving no survivors. What a psycho. Heh, why doesn't he come to our planet 88? Does he dare? There are emperor-level beings guarding this place, and more than one. That's nothing. I've heard even crazier stories. This guy ate all the corpses, leaving nothing behind. Hey, you guys have too much free time. Why bother with all this? I have an even more explosive rumor. Want to hear it? Stop stalling. Spit it out. Hee hee, you all know about the heavenly rewards, right? What's there to say about that? It's something you get for killing those above your level, exclusive to prodigies. It has nothing to do with us. We might not be able to, but that doesn't mean others can't. Have you ever heard of the human race? What race is the human race? Are they tasty? Get lost. All you think about is eating. I've heard of the human race. Legend says there are ancestors. That's right. These heavenly rewards were established by the human race. They're a super benefit for the humans. Therefore, humans don't need to kill above their level. As long as they kill other races, regardless of strength, even killing a weak goblin, they'll receive heavenly rewards. It's just a matter of how much. Hiss. Are you saying that the one who's been slaughtering everywhere might be a human? Hee hee, I didn't say that. If it's true, damn. Slaughtering so many, how many rewards would he get? Impossible, right? That makes sense. That guy isn't a psycho. He's doing it for the heavenly rewards. Could it be the human emperor? Are you all aware that a huge incident has happened in the outside world? The god, demon, devil, dragon, phoenix, spirit, 5 elements, and destiny races, 8 super races, have issued a joint wanted poster. Anyone who provides information about the human emperor will receive 100 million star coins, the friendship of the 8 races, and their joint protection. If anyone can capture the human emperor and hand him over to the 8 races, regardless of their race, the 8 races will provide endless resources, guaranteeing that you will reach the emperor level. The moment the words fell, the entire hall fell silent. Then came the sound of heavy, ragged breathing. Such a reward was not only unprecedented, but also likely never to be repeated. Not to mention these bugs who could only stay in the gutters. Even those high and mighty prodigies and powerful figures would probably be extremely tempted. Heh, you don't really think you have the ability to claim this reward, do you? Do you even have the strength? A moment later, the person who first mentioned the human emperor chuckled and stood up. Then, he walked straight out of Star Sea Maze City, revealing a handsome yet sinister face. It was the demon race's Liangfeng. Planet 85. A desolate and silent wasteland, filled with ruined buildings. The stench of blood permeated the entire planet. This place had just experienced a great battle, or more accurately, a massacre. For the original inhabitants of this planet, it was the apocalypse. And in this apocalypse, not a single native survived. At this moment, on the ground, a magnificent palace rose from the earth. In front of the palace, Zhan couldn't help but sigh. He was truly extravagant, building a palace on every planet he visited. A proper prodigal human emperor. But there was no other way. With architects, he was this capricious. And in the future, when he conquered the entire universe, he would definitely build a human emperor palace on every planet. After fantasizing about the future, Zhan walked into the master bedroom of the palace and lay down on the 5-meter-wide bed. Then, with a thought, his consciousness entered the new world. As soon as he entered, 2 incomparably powerful energies burst forth. Not far away, Shura was going all out, battling a black-armored warrior. The number 1 expert below the emperor level was surprisingly unable to defeat the opponent. The 2 were evenly matched, their terrifying energy seemingly tearing the sky apart. Ha ha ha, so satisfying. So damn satisfying. It's been a long time since I felt this good. Shura laughed wildly, feeling every battle cell in his body burning. For the Shura race, when it came to feeling good, nothing could compare to battle. Shura hadn't expected that there was a being in this world who could fight him to this extent. The most terrifying thing was that the opponent was only at the Lord level. The black-armored warrior was, of course, number 1. Number 1 had already successfully evolved to the Lord level, and his strength was truly monstrous. Of course, no matter how monstrous, he couldn't possibly be evenly matched with a super expert like Shura. The current situation was entirely due to Shura holding back in the early stages, letting him stack his stronger with each battle buff for over an hour. Only now was Shura able to go all out. Zhan didn't bother with this madman. He'd let number 1 play with him. This Shura was a rather important ally to him. The next moment, his consciousness drifted to the territory where the mutated beasts were located. The giant panda, Gun, was lying flat on the ground, surrounded by all kinds of corpses. From time to time, it would open its mouth, and a terrifying suction force would emanate from it, drawing the corpses into its mouth. It didn't even need to bite. They were instantly digested. After slaughtering so many planets, besides Zhan, the mutated beasts had gained the most. They had been eating without restraint. Other mutated beasts, even the king and others, had a limit. After evolving to a certain extent, they seemed to lose the ability to improve further. Eating more was useless. But this giant panda was different. It was truly like a bottomless pit, eating as much as it could. Now, even Zhan couldn't see through Gun's strength. Even Shura was extremely tempted by this giant panda and wanted to battle it for hundreds of rounds. Unfortunately, Gun was too lazy to fight that madman and simply ignored him. There was nothing Shura could do but settle for number 1. Meow, meow, meow. Is there anything tastier? I'm tired of these. Gun sensed Zhan's arrival and immediately opened its mouth, bleeding, acting like it was ordering around a subordinate. Zhan snorted coldly. With a thought, all the corpses around Gun instantly disappeared. Little punk, I can't even control you in my own world. In an instant, Gun started throwing a tantrum on the ground, wailing and shedding tears. Meow, 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 woo-woo. Gun was wrong, woo-woo. Food. Gun Gun won't dare again. Wu, human emperor, please be generous, Wu. Chapter 2:18. The chaotic killing maniac. Woof woof woof. Boss is boss. When are you going to let us go out and cause a ruckus? Roar roar roar. Yeah, good brother. Although it's pretty nice here. Eating and sleeping every day. Sleeping and eating. Oh wool. You idiot. Don't you shit? Roar roar roar. What did you say? You want to fight? Several mutated beasts sensed Zhan and flew up into the sky, barking and roaring incessantly. These days, Zhan had really fattened them up, not even letting them go out to exercise. Stay put. Don't think about causing trouble all day. If you have nothing to do, study how to reproduce. Zhan scolded them. King, isn't there a lioness over there? Go talk to her, make some kind of liger. If you want to go out and cause a ruckus, there will be an opportunity, and I estimate that opportunity will be coming soon. These brats, they had food and drink and were still unsatisfied, causing trouble every day. The human race had already complained to him many times. The king and the other mutated beasts would often go to the human race territory to stroll around and show off their power. Although there was no bloodshed, the human race was quite resentful. After scolding them for a while, Zhan's consciousness traveled again, directly to the human race's territory. At this moment, the human race in the New World had established a new social order. Laws, rules, and everything else were being perfected in an orderly manner. Unlike the mutated beasts, the human race was often pulled out by Zhan to fight. After all, the human race needed to grow stronger by killing other races. However, he didn't force them. Those who didn't want to fight and were content with the status quo could stay in this new world and enjoy a peaceful life. Of course, the resources and status they received would naturally be inferior to those of the combat personnel. After more than a dozen planets of experience, the strength of the human race had naturally increased greatly. Top-level experts like Bloodblade ancestor Zhan could now compete with the top lords of other races. The current strength of the human race, while not in the top 10 among all races, was at least at a medium or higher level. And the most terrifying thing was that after experiencing so many hardships, the remaining humans were absolutely united, a solid block. Even those who didn't want to fight could, at a critical moment, disregard their own lives and fight to the death for the human race. Looking at everything in this new world, Zhan's heart couldn't help but be filled with pride. Old Huang, Teacher Liu, this is the human race you wanted to see. And all of this is just the beginning. I, Zhan, will lead the human race to return to the supremacy of the universe and make all those so-called myriad races submit at our feet. Just then, Shura suddenly roared from afar. Damn it, human emperor. Make this little thing stop. I can't take it anymore. Number 1 was getting stronger with each battle. His stacked combat power had now surpassed Shura's. Plus, Zhan had told Number 1 to go all out from the beginning. If they continued to fight, Shura might actually be killed by Number 1. Shura, rest well. Soon, there will be a real battle waiting for you. Zhan recalled Number 1 to the necropolis space and said at the same time, Oh, I'm looking forward to it. Shura was naturally unafraid, extremely excited. For him, a battle that could be called a real battle could only involve emperor-level beings. But with the human emperor's status, it was normal to provoke emperor-level beings. Leaving the new world, Zhan went straight to sleep on the big bed. Although with his current physique, he no longer needed sleep. But as a human, how could he not sleep? Planet 84. During this period, Planet Lord Angzia was truly on edge. Recently, that chaotic killing maniac had been stirring up quite a bit of unrest in the chaotic Star Sea. That's right. The chaotic Star Sea had already dubbed this guy the chaotic killing maniac. If Zhan knew he had such a lame title, he'd definitely chop up the guy who came up with it. Although in a place like the chaotic Star Sea, there were no rules, and killing some creatures was nothing. But slaughtering one planet after another like this was truly the first time in history. Now, all the races on planets after number 50 were terrified, fearing that the killing maniac would come knocking. Your Majesty, none of those we sent out have returned. Inside the palace, Angzia sat on the throne. Below was a huge toad, lying on the ground and reporting. Then, he quickly suggested, Your Majesty, how about we pack up and run? I've heard a saying, while there's life, there's hope. Humph. Angzia snorted coldly, her long snake tail viciously whipping the toad away. Run? I've been in this chaotic star sea for hundreds of years. How would I have any face left if I ran? Don't worry, I've already received news. If that killing maniac dares to come here, he'll never leave. She had already received word. That chaotic killing maniac was actually some kind of human emperor. Although she didn't know what a human emperor was, that wasn't important. What was important was that not long ago, Lord Soul Master had personally sent her a message. As long as she cooperated in capturing that human emperor, she could return to the god race. Not only that, but he would also fully support her in becoming an emperor-level being. So Angzia had to stay, no matter what. If she could return to the god race and become an emperor level, she would be a powerful figure in the entire universe. Who the hell would want to stay in this godforsaken place? Although she had long since exhausted her potential and reached the end of her strength, making it almost impossible to advance to the emperor level. But who was the Soul Master? A god-level existence, one of the most supreme beings in the entire universe. If this existence took action, it was not impossible for her to advance to the emperor level. Boom! Just then, there was a sudden loud noise in the sky, as if it had been torn apart. Why, Your Majesty, that killing maniac is here, the toad demon said, trembling all over. However, Angzia's expression changed, and she thought to herself. Finally, Angzia flew out of the palace and indeed saw a figure floating in the sky, extremely arrogant, looking down on all the creatures below. Why, Your Majesty, what should we do? Your Majesty, kill him. Your Majesty, run. We'll hold him back. Your Majesty, I will fight to the death. As soon as Angzia appeared, the creatures below began to shout. The name of the chaotic killing maniac had already spread, making them tremble with fear. Angzia, however, ignored them and suddenly stretched out her hand, shooting a mark toward the sky. This mark was so fast that it seemed to cross space, and it seemed to lock onto its target, instantly reaching the figure in the air. Lu Zhan's expression changed slightly. He was about to blink away, but it was too late. The thing directly entered his body. In an instant, he felt his soul being imprisoned, unable to move at all. The next second, a terrifying aura suddenly appeared, forming a large hand that reached out and grabbed Lu Zhan. Chapter 219, A Gathering of Gods. The Soul Master couldn't help but tremble with excitement. His soul vibrated with an intensity he hadn't felt in how long? With his status and power, there was perhaps nothing in the entire universe that could excite him anymore. When was the last time? He couldn't remember clearly, but it had been at least 1,000 years. It seemed to have been when he ascended to godhood. And at this moment, the feeling of excitement was even stronger than when he had ascended. He was about to seize the human emperor. Without a doubt, all of the human race's fortune was concentrated in the human emperor. Capturing him was equivalent to seizing the opportunity to achieve eternity. This was also the reason he had secretly plotted. He had to snatch the human emperor away with extreme speed. Otherwise, once the Chaos Master realized what was happening, he would certainly not let him succeed. There might even be a god war. Once a god war started, other gods would also appear. At that time, even if he captured the human emperor, he would probably have to share the human race's fortune with other gods. It wouldn't necessarily guarantee his achievement of eternity. Nothing could compare to the joy of him alone enjoying the human race's fortune. Now that the human emperor's soul was imprisoned by him, he was completely unable to escape. He was confident that he could snatch the human emperor away in less than a second. In such a short time, even the Soul Master would not be able to detect it. However, just as his god hand was about to grasp the human emperor, in an instant, an incomparably terrifying power erupted from the human emperor's body, accompanied by a furious roar. Lucifer, I'll fucking kill you. The Soul Master's expression changed drastically. How could he not recognize this voice? The owner of this voice was arguably the one voice that all gods in the entire universe least wanted to hear, because hearing it meant a god war. The owner of this voice was a madman, a complete and utter madman. How terrifying was a god-level madman? The Soul Master no longer cared about the human emperor and instantly tried to leave. But the next second, the entire planet instantly changed color, turning a terrifying blood red. Lucifer, you came and now you want to leave? You son of a bitch, daring to control our Shura race's Shura god. You're provoking the entire Shura race. Lucifer, I'll never let you rest. In the blood-red world, a figure holding a long blade pointed towards the sky, like a god of slaughter. This figure was Shura, but his entire aura had changed drastically, becoming countless times stronger. Shuradao, what are you raging about? You're just an avatar. Do you really think I'm afraid of you? The Soul Master snorted coldly and revealed his true form in the air. Shuradao was the owner of the voice, the current strongest of the Shura race, a god-level Shura. This madman, in order to prevent him from escaping, had actually covered the entire planet with the Shura domain. He had no choice but to reveal himself. The reason why the gods of the myriad races were unwilling to encounter Shuradao was not that they were afraid of him. They were all gods. It was basically impossible to kill each other. The main reason was that there was no point in fighting Shuradao. It was purely a waste of energy. Only a fool would do such a thing. And if they got carried away and got injured, it wouldn't be good if another god took advantage of the situation. It's indeed an avatar now, but my Shura race has already mobilized our entire force. All of the Shura armies are heading towards the chaotic star sea. Lucifer, are you not afraid? Shuradao laughed. He was called a madman, but he wasn't really a madman. It was naturally impossible to rush up and fight the other party directly now. This was, after all, Shura's body. It wouldn't be good if it was damaged. The Soul Master frowned slightly. Others might just be bluffing, but the Shura race really might have the entire race rush over to fight. That would be really troublesome. Although he was a god of the god race, he couldn't drag the entire god race into a fight. Haha, it's rare. It's rare. My chaotic star sea is rarely this lively. You two are truly enjoying yourselves. Just then, another powerful voice approached from afar. After a moment, a figure walked directly into the planet from the air. Within the Shura domain, it could prevent enemies from escaping, but it could not prevent people from entering. Chaos, what, do you want to fight me too? Shuradao, facing two gods, showed no fear at all and actively provoked them. Haha, don't misunderstand. You fight your fight. I'm only interested in that human emperor. The Chaos Master laughed, his eyes nakedly fixed on the human emperor. Advancing to eternity, such a temptation. Which god wouldn't be tempted? He was no exception. The human emperor is indebted to my Shura race. Whoever dares to touch the human emperor will have to step over my dead body first. Shuradao said directly. Hearing this, Lu Zhan's heart was immediately set at ease. The Shura race were all battle maniacs, like madmen, who would avenge any grievance, but at the same time, they would also repay any kindness. Lu Zhan had saved Shura, which was equivalent to saving the future god of the entire Shura race, the hope of the Shura race. With such a great kindness, if necessary, Shuradao could really repay it with his life. This was also the biggest reason why Lu Zhan was willing to cooperate with this group of madmen. That's right. As early as a few days ago, Lu Zhan had contacted this god of the Shura race through Shura. His high-profile slaughter of planets was bound to attract the attention of those with ulterior motives. There were too many races who wanted to target him. Since that was the case, he might as well just openly expose himself. Liang Feng was a pawn he had placed. He had used this trick on his home planet, directly using himself as bait to lure out all the races who wanted to target him, and directly wipe them all out in one fell swoop. Of course, doing so required sufficient strength. If he didn't have it, it would be like inviting a wolf into the house, purely seeking death. Is that so? Shuradao, since that's the case, let's join forces and eliminate you first. Another powerful aura appeared. Then, a man bathed in holy light slowly flew in. It was another god-level existence of the god race, the Light Master, looking at the Soul Master, somewhat dissatisfied. Soul, oh soul, if you had notified me earlier, this human emperor would have long been under the control of my god race. Humph. The Soul Master snorted coldly, not explaining. He had failed to eat alone and was even caught red-handed. He had nothing to say. But no matter what, they were all of the god race, still a family. The god race was already number one among all races. Now that two gods were here, they had pretty much taken control of the situation. GGG. I'll also take a share. You guys don't mind, do you? Soul, It's not good to try to eat alone. That's right, that's right. You actually wanted to swallow the human race's vast fortune alone. Aren't you afraid of choking to death? Everyone, I've long been displeased with this Shura Dao. Let's join forces and kill him first, and then discuss how to deal with the human emperor. What do you say? Suddenly, 6 or 7 gods stepped into this Shura domain. Although the chaotic Star Sea was a place of chaos and crime, the more powerful races all had spies arranged there. Liang Feng's publicity was basically a proclamation to the universe. The human emperor was here. At this moment, numerous gods gathered. This was probably an unprecedented scene in the entire universe. Chapter 220, Trump Cards. Ha ha ha, so many divine-level experts. Today, I'm truly going to have a satisfying fight. Facing the multitude of divine-level beings, the Azura Path showed no fear whatsoever, laughing heartily. At the same time, a figure shot directly from outside the planet and merged with the Azura Path. It was none other than the true body of the Azura Path. Immediately afterward, Azura Rakshasa was instantly separated from the Azura Path body, only to vanish in the blink of an eye, entering Lu Zhan's new world. The Soul Master was right before him, and it seemed he would be controlled by the enemy in less than a second. However, under the current circumstances, the Soul Master was too preoccupied to bother with a mere Azura Rakshasa. Come on, are you going to fight me one by one, or all at once? With his true body descending, the Azura Path's aura surged dramatically, becoming incredibly arrogant. The gathered divine-level experts frowned. Although they were all at the divine level, there were naturally gradations of strength. The Azura Path's power far exceeded their expectations. For a moment, the scene fell silent. Truth be told, they wouldn't dare to go one-on-one. If the first few were killed by the Azura Path, the loss would be too great. But attacking together? So many divine-level experts ganging up on one? Wouldn't that be a little dishonorable? The Azura race stirs up wars everywhere, detrimental to the peace of the entire universe, and violates the heavenly Tao. They should be exterminated. If you are worried about being accused of bullying, then let my god race take the lead. Let's all attack together and exterminate this Azura Path scoundrel. What do you say? The Lord of Light said loudly, with an air of righteous indignation. Light is right. This kind of fiend is simply a scourge to the universe and should be attacked by all. Just then, another powerful divine-level expert entered the Azura domain, immensely powerful. It was a divine-level expert from the demon race. Thus, God, demon, dragon, phoenix, 5 elements, fate, and elf. The divine-level experts of the 8 super races had all arrived. In this situation, everyone wanted a share of the human emperor's pie, and these super races naturally couldn't miss out. Arriving late meant getting nothing. In an instant, a full 9 divine-level experts simultaneously looked at the Azura Path, the meaning in their eyes obvious. They were going to duel him, a group duel against one. Human Emperor, little brother, what should we do now? Didn't you say you had a way? The Azura Path, showing no fear on his face, secretly transmitted his voice to Lu Zhan. When he talked to the Human Emperor, he had naturally anticipated this kind of situation. But the Human Emperor had confidently told him that he would have a solution. He was reckless, but not stupid. This obvious suicide mission was not a good idea. Of course, the Azura race had always kept its word. If necessary, he could indeed sacrifice himself for the Human Emperor. Don't worry, Azura boss. Lu Zhan smiled slightly and said, since he dared to use himself as bait and set this trap, he naturally had some confidence. Then, Lu Zhan looked at the sky and shouted loudly, where is the immortal race? The Human Emperor is in danger. Come quickly to the rescue. Didn't the immortal race say they would follow his lead? If that was the case, then they should appear now. As soon as he finished speaking, 2 more powerful figures slowly walked in. 1 man and 1 woman, exuding an ethereal immortal aura. Don't panic, Your Highness Human Emperor. We will never allow these petty people to harm the Human Emperor. One of them was the immortal venerable Miao Shan, and the other's aura was no weaker than the divine-level experts present. He was clearly a divine-level being as well. Lu Zhan raised an eyebrow. He didn't expect the immortal race to actually take action. And they even sent 2. Miao Hua greets Your Highness Human Emperor. The female immortal divine-level expert slightly bowed. respectfully greeting Zhan. Miao Shan, Miao Hua, what do you mean by this? The Lord of Light looked at the two immortal race big shots. His eyes narrowed, revealing a dangerous light. Regarding the human race, the immortal race had always seemed to be detached, keeping themselves aloof. He never expected that they would directly stand on the side of the human race at this moment. Looking at their posture, they were even bowing to the human emperor, which was simply outrageous. Where was the dignity of the divine-level experts? As soon as Light spoke, he heard the immortal venerable Miao Hua directly pointing at the other party and cursing. Light, you despicable villain, shameless and vile. You call yourself the Lord of Light, but I didn't expect you to be so dirty and disgusting behind the scenes. Let me ask you, did you set up the upper immortal pavilion in the chaotic star sea? Capturing our immortal race's celestial maidens for the enjoyment of all races? Light, I'm going to kill you today. The scene was silent. Even Zhan didn't expect that this immortal lady's divine-level temper would be so explosive. In an instant, all the divine-level experts' gazes were focused on Light's face. Being pointed at and scolded like this was something none of them, including the Lord of Light, had ever experienced. The feeling must be very refreshing. However, the Lord of Light's face remained unchanged, his skin truly cultivated to a profound level. The matter of the upper immortal pavilion was presided over by the Soul Master. What did it have to do with him, the Lord of Light? He heard the Lord of Light directly say coldly, Miao Hua, you can't speak recklessly. My god race will not allow anyone to slander us. Everyone, since the immortal race has chosen to collude with the Azura race, then let's destroy them together. At that time, my god race will not take a single point of the immortal race's resources. As soon as these words came out, the breathing of many divine-level experts became heavy. As one of the top 3 super races, the immortal race's resources were incredibly abundant. Even if they didn't get any of the human race's luck in this wave, the immortal race's resources alone would be attractive enough. On the scene, 3 against 9, the myriad races still held an absolute advantage. With 2 helpers, it's almost enough. I can kill at least 3. The Azura Path stared at a group of divine-level experts, grinning, and said. He was also clever, focusing on the relatively weaker ones. Azura boss, it's not just 2, there's a heavyweight. Zhan chuckled. Then, in the sky, a crack was suddenly torn open, and a woman in a long black dress slowly walked out of the crack, extremely elegant, but causing the air temperature of the entire planet to drop by dozens of degrees. A thick aura of death enveloped the entire scene. Death, you've crossed the line. Light burst out with dazzling light, suppressing the aura of death. Do you have a problem with that? The goddess of death looked at the other party, asking indifferently. Ha ha ha, everyone. How is the lineup that my human emperor has invited? Zhan laughed loudly, and the wings of death instantly unfolded behind him. Facing a group of divine-level experts, he didn't show the slightest weakness. However, at this moment, many divine-level experts were silent. Although they still had an absolute advantage in numbers, 9 against 4. But the 4 on the other side, Death, Azura, Immortal Race. They were definitely the most top-tier existences among the divine level. It was estimated that only the God race and the demon race could compete with these 4. Everyone, I'll just say one sentence. If we don't take down the human emperor this time, there will be no more chances in the future. Light said directly. It had only been how long? The human emperor had already grown to such an extent. If this continued for some time, the human race would completely turn the tables. Chapter 221. The Planet Cracks. For a moment, the expressions of the divine-level experts changed, but they still hesitated and struggled. If they failed to capture the human emperor and seize the human race's luck, the worst-case scenario was that they would be unable to advance to eternity. But with their divine-level realms, they could still live freely for thousands of years without any issues. However, if they fought now, they might end up falling. Just then, the Lord of Light seemed to see through their thoughts and spoke again. All of you present have participated in the massacre of the human race. If the human emperor gains power, it will be the time of your downfall. This was quite true. Zhan asked himself, if one day he had enough strength, he would exterminate all of these guys, leaving none alive. There was no way around it. Zhan was a person who held grudges. Haha, everyone, leave this Azura path guy to me. Beside them, the demon race's ancestor, who once had a brief connection with Zhan, carried a grotesquely shaped black giant axe on his shoulder and laughed loudly. The meaning of his words was very clear. The demon race was determined to fight this battle. I will deal with death, the Lord of Light said, looking at the goddess of death. Light and death were destined to have a battle. In this way, the other 7 divine-level experts only needed to deal with the 2 immortal race divine-level experts, and the pressure would naturally be much lower. Then let's fight. The divine war hasn't been initiated for tens of thousands of years. Today, we will fight one. Then let's take a trip above the 9 heavens. For a moment, none of the 7 divine-level experts retreated and spoke one after another. 7 against 2. If they were still cowardly, then they shouldn't be in the divine-level world. Haha, Demon Abyss, you have some guts, daring to fight me one-on-one. Then let's go. The Azura Path also laughed loudly, waving his hand to directly retract the Azura domain, then shot a mark into Zhan's hand. Human Emperor Kid, give this thing to my trash descendant. It can temporarily suppress the soul imprint. After I kill that soul master, I'll let him be completely free. After speaking, he soared into the sky. Himph, Azura Path, I've been displeased with you for a long time. Demon Abyss chased directly after him. Your Majesty Goddess, everything is entrusted to you. Zhan looked at the goddess of death, acting like a devoted admirer. The goddess of death's cold face did not change in the slightest. She merely glanced at Zhan out of the corner of her eye before flying directly into the sky. As the undead monarch, her strength was somewhat suppressed in the world of the living. Otherwise, would a mere Lord of Light dare to be so presumptuous in front of her? Then, Zhan looked at the 2 from the immortal race and said, Grandpa and Grandma, are you 2 okay? 2 against 7. To be honest, he felt that the immortal race was under the most pressure. If these 2 said they couldn't handle it, he would immediately have the goddess of death take him to the undead world. Don't worry, Your Highness Human Emperor. We have a joint attack technique. If we can't kill the enemy, we can at least not fall behind. Miao Shan said confidently. The immortal race was best at dual cultivation techniques. He and Miaohua were a pair of dual cultivation divine-level experts. The combination of the 2 gods was not as simple as 1 plus 1. After a while, a dozen divine-level experts all flew into the sky, as if flying out of the universe. How powerful was the strength of divine-level beings? The energy they released was incredibly terrifying, especially with a dozen divine-level beings. If they fought, the space would probably be torn apart and the universe would be destroyed. So, divine wars generally took place above the 9 heavens. Above the 9 heavens, there was the 9 heavens battlefield, a space that was incomparably strong and known as the battlefield of the gods. According to legends, a great battle once took place on this 9 heavens battlefield in ancient times. And it was after this battle that all the human race's experts disappeared, causing the human race to completely decline. Inside the planet, with all the divine-level beings gone, the terrifying aura instantly disappeared. On the ground, the many creatures who had been lying prone, afraid to move, finally raised their heads, trembling and shuddering, wanting to breathe a sigh of relief. However, in the next second, countless terrifying auras poured in from the outside again. Although their strength was not comparable to divine level, their numbers were enormous, practically boundless. God race, demon race, elf race, commander level, lord level, and even emperor level. When there were so many divine level beings just now, all of these existences were waiting outside the planet. Now, the divine level beings were gone. All the creatures swarmed up. They had only one goal: capture the human emperor. In the sky, Zhan looked at the numerous creatures that were rushing towards him, densely packed like a swarm of bees, but he was not afraid at all. He slowly opened his arms. If you want to fight, then fight. In the next second, the mutated beasts and the battle human race of the new world appeared behind him. This wasn't the end. With another wave of his hand, inside the undead space, a large number of undead surged over, covering most of the sky. These weren't trash undead. They were trump cards that the goddess of death had given him. There were not only a large number of lord-level undead, but also emperor-level undead. Bone Emperor. Undead Dragon Emperor, Lich Emperor, Hellhound Emperor. The number of emperor-level existences in the undead race was terrifying. On the other side, a large number of black-armored warriors entered this planet. They were well-trained, and their aura of killing was alarming. They were the warriors of the Azura race, a vast aura nurtured by slaughter. Zhan handed the mark in his hand to Azura Rakshasa in the New World. Azura Rakshasa directly rushed out of the New World. In an instant, the Azura Rakshasa's tens of thousands of soldiers all knelt down, including the several emperor-level experts among them. They were welcoming the return of the king, Azura Rakshasa's aura sword. Today, he would become an emperor in this battle. On the ground, Engzia was completely dumbfounded. What was happening today? What merit or virtue did her small number 84 planet have to allow so many big shots to descend? If they fought, wouldn't they directly explode the entire planet? And things really did go as she thought. In the sky, a demon emperor directly stretched out his demonic claws and grabbed fiercely towards Zhan. In his opinion, what human emperor? He was a weakling. It would be easy to capture him. Zhan sneered. These days, he had slaughtered a full dozen planets, and the total number of creatures was at least hundreds of billions. Even if the descending heavenly Tao rewards were small, the total would still be extremely terrifying. To be honest, Zhan didn't even know how strong he was now. He didn't have the strength level classification like the myriad races. He hadn't used his full strength for a long time. Then, he would use the emperor-level beings to test his sword. The blood lament appeared directly in Zhan's hand. He fiercely gathered his chi and slashed at the demonic claw. In an instant, the blood lament instantly bloomed with a terrifying sword chi that was thousands of meters long. The surrounding creatures all felt their blood and chi boiling. Those below the Lord level even exploded on the spot, turning into blood mist. Boom! The huge blood-colored sword chi directly slashed onto the demonic claw, and terrifying energy overflowed. Only the sound of pong was heard, as if something had broken. Above the sky, a crack actually appeared. The planets in this chaotic star sea were relatively weak in the first place. Under the impact of such powerful energy, this planet actually cracked. Chapter 222, Guerrilla Warfare. Destroying a planet sounded like a fantasy. But in the case of an Emperor-level attack, it was not something to be surprised about, let alone a Divine-level attack. No one cared about the crack in the sky. If this trash planet cracked, then so be it. The demon race Emperor frowned slightly, looking at the human Emperor, and couldn't help but be shocked. This human Emperor is interesting. The other Emperors also looked sideways. The level of that sword just now had already reached the level of a strong race's Emperor. When he was on the ancestral star, the human Emperor was still a weakling who could be easily killed by even a Lord-level expert. This growth was a bit too terrifying. Zhan calmed the boiling chi in his body and took a deep breath. As expected of the demon race's Emperor, to be honest, he was still a bit lacking. Just now, his full strength attack was only at the level of the opponent's ordinary attack. But so what? Why did he use himself as bait to set up this situation? Wasn't it to kill monsters and level up? In this battle, he would become stronger and stronger until he completely surpassed these emperors. And the sword just now officially sounded the horn of the battle, and the Great War completely broke out. In an instant, soldier against soldier, general against general. As for the emperors, damn it, they were all rushing towards Zhan, a total of hundreds of them from various races, obviously wanting to capture Zhan first. This formation would scare even a divine-level being. Zhan didn't expect these guys to be so crazy. Without any hesitation, he turned around and ran. Damn it, he could barely handle one emperor. So many rushing together would tear him to pieces in minutes. On the side, all the emperor-level undead directly rushed up to block those emperors. The Azura race and the Immortal race also rushed up with several emperors. The emperor-level war broke out instantly. Terrifying energy filled the entire planet. Almost in the next second, with a bang, the entire planet exploded directly, and all the creatures were exposed to the universe. Many of the creatures originally living on this planet were weaklings below the commander level. Without the protection of the planet, they died directly. But no one would care about these things. More and more creatures joined this battle, and even more were constantly rushing in from the outside. Even the guys in the chaotic star sea in front of Planet 50 all rushed out. At this moment, Zhan was like a cunning loach, constantly shuttling through the battlefield. His eyesight was keen, and what he did was very simple. Ambush. Real ambush, regardless of whether he killed the target or not. He ran after one strike. Moreover, he specialized in ambushing those powerful Lord-level experts. Only those guys had enough heavenly Dao rewards. He had no choice. Behind him, there were still several emperors frantically chasing him. While running, he could only spare time to slash out a sword. If he stayed for even a second longer, he would probably be caught up. In the rear, several emperors were going crazy. They never expected that this human emperor's speed would be so fast. They had underestimated Zhan, or rather, underestimated the super artifact, Wings of Death. The Wings of Death was known as the #1 artifact of the undead system. Even the goddess of death was extremely tempted to collect it. Even Zhan himself was quite surprised that this thing could enhance its effect as his strength increased. That is, the stronger he was, the faster the speed provided by the Wings of Death would be. With this strike-and-run tactic, although the efficiency was not high, it was stable. Moreover, he had really killed several Lord-level experts through ambushes. As the heavenly Dao rewards descended, his strength increased again. If this continued, it would be a completely positive cycle. When his strength was strengthened to a certain extent, he would directly turn around and kill those divine-level experts, letting them dare to chase him. What was this called? This was called guerrilla warfare. However, in other places, Zhan's side was extremely miserable. There were too many enemies. Too many to kill. A large number of humans were killed, but no one retreated. At this moment, the human race was already a monolith, truly united in mind, and even more crazy when fighting than those mutated beasts. While a large number of humans were killed, the remaining humans became stronger and stronger. Killing the myriad races gained rewards. This was the advantage of the entire human race, not just enjoyed by the human emperor alone. Just like the blood-saber old ancestor Zhan, this guy could not only get heavenly Dao rewards, but also absorb the blood of the myriad races. To strengthen himself, his current strength could actually compete with the emperor level, and he was known as the human race's second strongest. Roar. Suddenly, a dragon roar resounded throughout the sky, but it sounded painful. It turned out that the panda rolling was directly lying on the dragon body of an emperor-level dragon, biting it bite after bite. That emperor-level dragon used all kinds of attack methods: tail sweep, dragon scale scraping, dragon claw scratching, and dragon breath was sprayed countless times. But it was useless. His proud attacks were useless in front of this black and white creature, making him wonder if he was old. This creature was like a plaster, stuck to him, unable to shake it off. The most terrifying thing was that this creature was eating him alive. The feeling of watching himself being eaten bit by bit filled his heart with terror. He was an emperor-level dragon, the most top-level existence in the entire universe. At this moment, he was about to be eaten alive. Alice, come save me. Helpless, the dignified emperor-level dragon no longer cared about losing face and quickly sent out a distress message. Alice was a fiery red phoenix. Since ancient times, dragons and phoenixes were inseparable. The dragon race and the celestial phoenix race had always been two major races that helped each other. Hearing the call for help, Alice immediately sneered. Haha, Laxile, you also have today. Being bullied like this by a creature, you are losing face for the dragon race. However, ridicule was ridicule, but he still had to save him. Alice let out a phoenix cry and spewed out an extremely terrifying scorching flame, directly hitting Rolling. Alice was very confident that even the Earth race's emperor level, known for their defense, would not be able to withstand this attack. However, when the energy dissipated, the creature was as if it was not injured. Meh. Ah. You actually disturbed this baby's meal. Then this baby will eat you first. Rolling looked at his almost scorched fur. His anger value was directly maxed out, and he immediately let go of the dragon's body and jumped up. With extremely fast speed, he instantly jumped onto the back of the fire phoenix. Alice sneered. The phoenix race's entire body was burning with lava-like protective flames. If ordinary creatures approached, they would be asking to be burned. As a result, when the creature took the first bite, Alesi finally realized that something was wrong. This creature was even eating his protective flames. Rolling grabbed the phoenix's wings and took a bite. A taste he had never eaten before. Spicy. Delicious. Rolling didn't seem to have any special powers, but the two ordinary characteristics had already made him invincible. Incredibly terrifying defense and a heaven-defying stomach that could eat anything. Chapter 223, Emperor's Fall. Laxile, save me. Soon, it was Alesi's turn to call for help. The dragon Laxile would naturally not sit idly by and quickly attacked. However, this time, Rolling seemed determined to eat this little bird. He tightly hugged the bird's neck with both hands, frantically gnawing. But at this time, a thunderclap suddenly sounded in the universe, like a wail, like a funeral. Even the universe outside the chaotic star sea seemed to hear this thunderclap. Then, a blood-colored rain poured down, staining the entire battlefield in the chaotic star sea. The myriad races fighting in the battle could not help but feel a trace of sadness in their hearts, and they were shocked. Emperor's Fall. This was the phenomenon that would only be produced when an emperor fell. And not just an ordinary emperor, but an emperor of a strong race. They didn't expect that an emperor would fall so soon after the start of the war. The universe had not heard the wailing sound of an emperor's fall for thousands of years. The cruelty of this battle exceeded the imagination of many creatures. As a result, in the next second, another magnificent voice sounded in the universe. This time it was joy, it was congratulations. A creature had advanced to the emperor level. Heaven and earth blessings. Today, I, Asura Rakshasa, kill an emperor and become an emperor. I hereby vow that if the god race is not exterminated, the Asura race will not stop fighting. They saw that Asura Rakshasa was covered in blood, with no intact part of his body, scarred and almost unable to stand, and they could imagine how tragic the battle he had just experienced was. It was he who had just done his best to kill an emperor. In the next moment, a huge energy descended from the sky above the universe and directly entered Asura Rakshasa's body. All of his injuries immediately recovered. His aura climbed steadily, instantly surpassing the original, and incredibly terrifying energy burst out from his body. This was the heavenly Tao reward for killing an emperor from a lower realm. He was already a peak Lord-level expert before being controlled by the Soul Master. After thousands of years of silence, killing an emperor at once, the heavenly Tao reward immediately allowed him to become an emperor on the spot. The Asura race welcomes the arrival of the Asura Emperor. The Asura race is invincible. 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 For a time, all the Asura race shouted in unison. Even the original Asura race emperors were no exception, as if welcoming their true emperor. It was rumored that when this Asura Rakshasa was born, the murderous aura soared into the sky, directly shaking the entire Asura race, and the Asura path immediately positioned him as the Asura race's future only true god. Asura. Invincible. Asura Rakshasa roared angrily. Suddenly, his body suddenly began to grow larger, and an incredibly terrifying aura almost enveloped the entire battlefield. This is the Asura true body. The emperor of the Asura race looked extremely excited and exclaimed incredulously. If they were not still in the middle of a battle, he was afraid that he would kneel down directly. The Asura true body, the legendary strongest power of the Asura race, could only be used by a true Asura. The Asura race was different from other myriad races. According to legend, it did not belong to this universe, but it came from the Asura realm. As for what the Asura realm was and how they came, no one knew, leaving only some legends. Coming to this universe for tens of thousands of years, the so-called Asura race bloodline had long been contaminated. To put it bluntly, the so-called Asura race was actually just a hybrid. According to records, only a pure Asura bloodline could use the Asura true body. But at this moment, Asura Rakshasa actually used it. He was a true Asura. After a while, Asura Rakshasa had transformed into a terrifying giant nearly 10 meters tall. Under the terrifying aura, the bodies of weaker creatures actually began to deform, as if being squeezed by some force. The divine-level experts of the myriad races changed their expressions. How was it possible? How was it possible that he had such terrifying strength just after being promoted to the divine level, even more frightening than these old emperors? This universe's number one genius in tens of thousands of years had finally exerted his true terror. On the side, Zhan was extremely unhappy in his heart. Damn dog author, who is the protagonist of this book. He actually let this Asura Rakshasa steal his limelight. If you have the ability, open another book and let Asura Rakshasa be the protagonist. Unhappy or unhappy, it was always a good thing for his side to greatly increase in strength. The way this Asura Rakshasa looked, it was probably not a problem for him to fight 2 or 3 strong race emperors. But he should also do something big. Behind him, the several emperors were also shaken by the power of that Asura Rakshasa, and their expressions changed. The speed at which they chased Zhan naturally slowed down a bit. Taking this opportunity, Zhan glanced around and quickly found his target. Then, he fiercely fanned the wings of death and approached the target at an extremely fast speed. Everyone, I'm afraid we can't drag it on. We need to quickly capture that human emperor. Motherfucking nonsense. Who doesn't know that? Why don't you go and catch him? Fengxing, as a dignified Feng race divine level expert, you shouldn't only have this much speed, right? Are you planning something? The human race's luck cannot be swallowed alone by one race. Everyone, don't make mistakes because of greed. It's kingly to work together. In the rear, several divine level experts talked while chasing. After all, everyone was from different races. Although they seemed to be allies now, they couldn't avoid having ulterior motives. The so-called those who are not of my race will have different hearts. Their identities determined that they could never be as united as the human race. Let's just say that there are several emperors in this battlefield. Don't look like they are all fighting, but only they know if some of them have used all their strength or some of them are touching fish. This was also the human race's opportunity. Otherwise, if the myriad races really attacked with all their strength, even with the help of the Asura, undead, and immortal races, the human race would not be able to resist. Ahead, Zhan took a deep breath and began to mobilize all the energy in his body, achieving the highest unity of spirit, energy, and spirit. The next sword would be his strongest sword in history. He must kill with one sword. Zhan wanted to win back the limelight and tell the readers who was the real protagonist of this book. And his target was nothing else. It was the celestial phoenix race emperor-level expert who was still being eaten by rolling and constantly wailing. Attacking at this moment, this guy would be completely unprepared. In addition, he had been eaten so much by rolling, and his strength had already declined a lot. Flying to a certain distance, Zhan's body instantly disappeared in place, directly flashed in front of the bird head of that phoenix emperor. Then, a sword. In Zhan's hand, the blood lament that had accompanied him for so long actually shattered into countless pieces with a ding sound and dissipated in the air. In the end, this sword was just a red equipment and could not bear such terrifying energy at all. As for that Phoenix Emperor Alasi, he directly let out a wailing sound. He was just still panicking and wanted to shake the black and white creature off, and he didn't even notice Zhan's appearance. When he reacted, the terrifying energy had already been poured into his bird's head. Boom, 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 boom. Alasi's head directly began to explode, and his vitality was rapidly annihilated. Thunderous explosions resounded again in the sky. Emperor. Fallen again. Chapter 224. Waiting. In such a short period, even 2 emperors of strong races had fallen. This was the first time in tens of thousands of years. Most terrifyingly, they didn't know how long this war would last, or how many more emperors would fall. This day could be called the Day of Emperor's Fall. Above the sky, heaven and earth rewards descended again, landing on Zhan, and were even thicker and stronger than before. There was no way around it. The human race had an advantage in this matter that other races couldn't envy. Zhan took a deep breath, only feeling that his whole body was full of explosive power, making him unable to resist wanting to vent. However, he didn't rush. Instead, he moved in his heart and first put the corpse of the celestial phoenix race emperor in front of him into the new world. He not only wanted to kill emperors, but he wouldn't even let go of their corpses. Meh. Wurwa, eating. Where did you take my eating? Rolling, who was eating happily, suddenly became unhappy and was almost about to roll around in the air. Good, be good. I'll save it for you first and eat it after the fight. Zhan also had a headache. This guy was already able to go 5-5 with an Emperor-level expert. How could Rolling still be like a child and still need him to coax him? See that dragon? Go eat on him. Meh. Then you have to keep it safe for me. Don't let that dog, that tiger, and that gorilla secretly eat it. Rolling said seriously. After saying that, he saw the Emperor-level dragon already flying away. Meh. Eating. Don't run. Rolling quickly chased after him. Zhan was a little speechless. Feeling the huge power in his body, he naturally didn't advance to the Emperor level like Asura Rakshasa. To be honest, he didn't even know what realm he was in. It seemed that the human race and the myriad races didn't walk the same path. You bastards dare to chase me, right? Zhan turned his head and looked at the emperors who had been chasing him so hard just now, his fighting spirit high. Today, the emperor he wanted to slaughter was not just one. Everyone this time. We must use all our strength. The emperors also looked at each other. At this moment, the human emperor's aura made them feel that he was not weaker than the emperor level. Too terrifying. If he killed a few more emperors, wouldn't this guy be able to directly become a god? Was this the human race? They thought of the human race's various legends. The spirit of all things, the darling of heaven and earth, the supreme of the universe. As a result, in the next second, Zhan waved his wings and ran away again. Damn. The opposite side had 5 or 6 divine-level experts. Only a fool would rush up to fight. His current strength was indeed very strong, but he could only fight 1 emperor level, and 2 would be difficult. 5 or 6. Purely looking for death. He should continue to run and continue to ambush. He should grab a few more emperor-level heads first. Damn it. The emperors didn't expect that the human emperor who had been full of fighting spirit just now would run away directly in the next second. For a moment, they didn't react and quickly chased after him. However, the successive fall of 2 emperors also made the remaining emperors become cautious. Thousands of years of comfortable life had made these emperors have the illusion that they seemed to be invincible. In fact, they were. In the universe where divine-level beings didn't appear, emperor-level beings were already the ceiling-level existence. Except for dying of old age, there was basically nothing that could make them fall. But now, these emperors realized. It turned out, the emperor-level beings were also so fragile and so easy to fall. Therefore, where did any emperors dare to fight alone? They began to help each other in groups of 3 or 2. Asura Rakshas's side was even attacked by 4 emperors at the same time, which was outrageous. In this situation, it was really not easy for Zhan to pick up heads. Time passed little by little. Whether in terms of strength or number, the myriad races far exceeded the human race's side. A large number of humans died, tragically and incomparably tragically. Zhan watched all of this with his own eyes, but there was no fluctuation in his heart. He could completely put all the humans into the new world and then run away directly. With his speed, as long as it wasn't a divine-level being, he couldn't catch up with him at all. Perhaps that way, he could survive for a while longer and develop for a while longer. But since he had already decided to start this war, then sacrifice was inevitable. In this war, he wanted to show the human race's momentum and show the human race's bloodiness. Because this was the human race's declaration of war, he wanted to make the myriad races understand that your former king had returned. Even if 10,000 or 100,000 people died, he would not hesitate. So unless it really came to the last moment, he would never escape. And now, it was far from the last moment. The human race was also growing crazily while dying. He believed that soon, there would be experts comparable to the emperor level among the human race. His trump card number 1 was still developing. As long as there was enough time, it would be no problem to slaughter emperors and kill gods. And he was also waiting for a signal. Since there were no emperor-level heads for him to pick up, then he was going to do something big. Above the 9 heavens, 12 divine-level beings, 3 battlefields, were clearly separated. However, the battle of the strongest beings in this universe looked calm and peaceful. There were no fancy moves, no energy bursting out everywhere, and no gorgeous magic skills. The so-called moves and skills were actually a way to exert power. And if one wanted to advance to the divine level, The most important condition was to master the origin of power. Having mastered the origin of power, one would naturally no longer need those messy moves and skills. The divine-level being's battle method was also very simple. It was collision. The collision of origin power. It looked ordinary, but if any Emperor-level beings accidentally broke into it, they would probably be crushed to death in minutes. Among the three battlefields, the collision between the Azura Path and the Demon Lord was the most dangerous and intense. Both were hot-tempered masters. During the battle, they were still constantly spitting out swear words and verbally outputting, which was a real fire fight. The most peaceful was the immortal race. The two gods of the immortal race cultivated together, and the two kinds of origin power blended together like water and milk, as if forming a source of Tai Chi. Under the attack of 7 divine-level beings, they could still stand still, which was extremely terrifying. As for Death and Light, the two just stood in the air, motionless. The Lord of Light, the well-deserved #1 strongman of the myriad races, only because he mastered 2 kinds of origin power, light and holiness. And holiness had a natural meaning of restraint for the undead. Death, what a great courage! You dare to come to the world of the living. The Lord of Light waved his hand, and a small sun suddenly appeared in the sky, emitting an incomparably dazzling light, shining on the goddess of death, making a sizzling sound, as if it was constantly burning. What? Can you kill me? The goddess of death said expressionlessly, and said indifferently, If you can, I can give up resistance. The Lord of Light's expression condensed, feeling that he had been humiliated. Even if he had the origin power of holiness, even if he was the #1 strongman in the universe, in any case, he could not kill the goddess of death. Chapter 225, The Great Tao, Finale. If I can't kill you, then I'll let you roll back to the undead world. The world of the living is not a place where you can set foot. The Lord of Light said a little irritably. Logically speaking, at his level, he should have been as calm as still water, and it was basically impossible for him to get angry. But for some reason, facing this extremely cold and beautiful goddess of death, the Lord of Light only felt that there was a fire constantly burning in his heart, making him want to tear this woman to pieces. The Lord of Light snorted coldly and stretched out his hands. In the sky, 10 suns suddenly appeared. 10 suns shone on the goddess of death at the same time. Under the crazy burning of the terrifying origin power, the goddess of death's body emitted a strong stench and wisps of gray and white smoke. She was being melted, constantly melting. Pain finally appeared on the goddess of death's cold face. It was this pain that made the Lord of Light extremely happy. Light and holiness were the strongest powers in this universe. Death? A load of bullshit. Ha ha ha, so you're called the goddess of death? The Lord of Light roared crazily, only feeling extremely happy. Did you see that? What goddess of death, undead monarch? In front of him, she didn't even have the power to fight back. Waste. Was a waste. He, the Lord of Light, was the strongest, and would definitely be able to surpass the divine level and achieve eternity in the future. At that time, he would completely kill this goddess of death. No, he was going to grab this goddess of death and ravage her fiercely. Ahead, the goddess of death's body was constantly being evaporated, and the expression on her face became more and more painful, but she didn't make any counterattacks or movements, as if she was just waiting to die. This process lasted for a full 10 minutes. The goddess of death's body was evaporated just like that, leaving only a pool of gray filth on the scene. Died? Returned to the undead world? It wasn't until this moment that the Lord of Light suddenly woke up, and then he was shocked. His face changed greatly, and he roared out of proportion. Be careful. But everything was too late. In the distance, a terrifying death power suddenly appeared, and that place was where the 2 immortal ancestors were fighting with other divine-level beings. Mu Qing was a divine-level existence of the 5 elements race, mastering the origin of wood. The wood system was not good at fighting, but more at healing and the power of life. In this divine war, she mostly played a supporting role, referred to as skimming. Suddenly, a strange gray mist actually appeared around her, and then swallowed her in an instant, and then went towards the lower world. In the distance, the Lord of Light watched all this with his own eyes, but there was no time to stop it at all. Illusion? Everything was an illusion. The goddess of death just now was not the real body, but an illusion. He had been played. From beginning to end, the power of arrogance. His soul was affected by the power of arrogance, producing an extremely arrogant mentality, so he didn't think much at all. At this moment, the Lord of Light realized the goddess of death was much more terrifying than he imagined. The goddess of death was an existence that was much older than these divine-level beings. In his memory, it seemed that when the previous generation and the generation before that of the God Lord were there, they often mentioned this goddess of death, and their voices were full of fear. Over tens of thousands of years, how could the goddess of death only master the origin of death? She also mastered the origin of the power of arrogance. From the beginning, her target was not the Lord of Light, but Mu Qing. Not because Mu Qing was the weakest and most fragile, but because death devoured life. The other divine-level beings also reacted immediately and wanted to chase, but it was too late, and at the same time, a trace of doubt arose in their hearts. Why? Why did the goddess of death target Mu Qing? Could it be because the two had a grudge? Or were they jealous of Mu Qing's beauty? Mu Qing was also extremely confused. She could feel the gray mist around her constantly devouring her life. She struggled crazily, but it was useless at all. This gray mist was like an indestructible cage, firmly locking her up and madly devouring her life at the same time. As the wood divine-level being, Mu Qing's vitality could be said to be extremely Wangsung. Normally speaking, she could be said to be one of the few existences among these divine-level beings who were the most difficult to die. However, facing the goddess of death, this so-called life goddess was as if she had been pressed on the bed and couldn't resist at all. Death? You're looking for death. The Lord of Light was furious and radiated an incomparably dazzling light, chasing straight after death. I'm dead anyway. The goddess of death, while imprisoning Mu Qing and flying down, actually had room to respond. The words she said even made the Lord of Light want to vomit blood. Seeing that the gray mist was about to fly to the junction of the 9 heavens and the lower world, the Lord of Light was shocked. What was this guy doing? If she wanted to kill, wouldn't it be okay to kill directly above the 9 heavens? Why did she have to take it to the lower world to kill? Chaotic Star Sea. The war was still going on. More than half of the humans had been killed, but the remaining humans were still fighting fearlessly. The blood-saber old ancestor had already strengthened to the point where he could fight an emperor on equal terms. The war emperor Yang Zhan was also close to the emperor level. Even Zhang Tianfu. Although he couldn't beat emperor-level experts, it was no problem for him to resist the emperor level. In other words, the human race had already appeared with experts equivalent to the emperor level. Although the myriad races had always occupied the upper hand, they were extremely shocked in their hearts. This growth rate was too fast. The shortest record for the myriad races to advance to the emperor level was a divine-level being, and it took a full 500 years. What about this human race? Has it been a year since the end of the world came? As expected of the spirit of all things, it was too terrifying. All the emperors of the myriad races couldn't help but feel a trace of fear in their hearts. If they didn't destroy the human race this time, then the myriad races would never have peace. At this time, Lu Zhan was still escaping. After that, those emperors all hoarded up, not seeking to kill the enemy, but only seeking to besiege the human race. After all, the number of the myriad races was terribly large. As long as they were besieged, the human race would be defeated. As for Rolling, he was led by a space-based emperor-level being, and several emperors joined forces and temporarily banished him to another space. Just then, Lu Zhan's heart moved. Finally, he had finally waited for that message. In the next second, Lu Zhan directly opened the wings of death to maximum power, flew into the sky, and kept flying towards the sky. The emperors in the rear frowned, not knowing why the human race was going to heaven. Could it be that he wanted to go to the 9 heavens to compete with the divine-level beings? In fact, their guess was not wrong. Lu Zhan did want to go up and compete with the divine-level beings, and not just compete, but to slaughter gods. When he asked the goddess of death to take action, Lu Zhan didn't expect that this dead woman would actually say that she wanted to give him a big gift. As for the gift, it was naturally the head of a divine-level being. This was indeed a top gift, so big that Lu Zhan didn't even know if he could take it. But how could a man say that he couldn't do it? Just now, the goddess of death had sent a message, saying that the big gift was coming soon. Zhan was excited in his heart. The divine level, even if there was only a drop of blood left, it was not so easy to kill. If he couldn't accept this big gift, the consequences would be extremely serious. The goddess of death might even directly abandon him, the human emperor. Without the support of the goddess of death, he, Zhan, would surely die. From a very far place, Zhan had already begun to concentrate his mind and gather his chi. The battlefield below, the human race's fighting spirit, Asura Rakshas's roar, the myriad race's anger, the emperor's chasing from behind. All of these were thrown behind him. At this moment, he only had one thought in his mind. That was to slaughter gods. Too bad. He didn't have a divine weapon. Otherwise, he would be more confident. But then, Zhan drove this thought out of his mind. To slaughter gods, he must have an indomitable momentum. Any trace of hesitation or wavering would make flaws appear in his attack. What if he didn't have a weapon? What if he didn't use skills? His strength was great enough. One punch was enough. He wanted to be One Punch Man. Zhan roared in his heart. Then, he punched towards the sky. With a boom sound, terrifying power poured out, and the emperors in the rear changed their expressions. What power was this? The origin of power. An emperor said incredulously. This emperor was also about to touch the origin, so he vaguely felt it. The punch that the human emperor threw had actually had a trace of the origin of power. The way of power could be said to be one of the most powerful and domineering powers in the universe. The so-called one force breaks 10,000 laws. Any attack, I use one force to break it. Any defense, I also use one force to break it. There was once a demon race emperor who had already reached the half-god realm, and what he mastered was the way of power, and his combat power could be said to be extremely terrifying, the first strong man under the divine level. Unfortunately, when this strong man wanted to go further, he was backlashed by the origin of power and directly exploded and died. He never expected that the human emperor had actually touched the origin of power. But what did he mean by waving his fist towards the sky? Did he want to break the universe? In the next second, a gap actually broke open above, and in the eyes of the emperors, it seemed that the space had really been broken open with one punch. But Zhan could see clearly. The space above was actively opened, and then a cloud of gray mist flew out, and the power of his punch just now was all poured into this cloud of gray mist. You dare! Above the 9 heavens, when the Lord of Light saw the human emperor, he finally understood everything and was furious. Heaven and earth rewards. Everything was for the heaven and earth rewards. How big would the reward for killing a divine-level being be? Even the Lord of Light couldn't imagine it. Guess if I dare? Zhan also saw the Lord of Light, grinned, and smiled fiercely. Then, he opened his arms, welcoming the big gift that was about to arrive. Just now, the system's voice had already sounded in his mind. Slaughter gods. Boom. The world changed color. Not just the sea of chaos, the entire universe resounded with an extremely magnificent voice. A voice that no living being had ever heard. Under this voice, the war in the sea of chaos seemed to have paused for a moment, and all the creatures stopped in place. Even the divine-level beings above the 9 heavens actually paused. The Lord of Light's face was incomparably hideous. He wanted to struggle, wanted to stop it, but he couldn't move forward. Only he knew. That was the voice of the Great Tao. The origin was not the ultimate manifestation of power, the Great Tao was. That was the power that even he dreamed of. Under the Great Tao's Sanskrit sounds, all beings were ants. A Great Tao shot down from above the 9 heavens and poured into Zhan's body. In an instant, Zhan let out an incomparably miserable scream. Pain. It was too painful. It was a life worse than death. In the eyes of the Lord of Light, the human emperor's body instantly shattered into countless pieces, but then instantly condensed together. This was the Great Tao transforming his body, transforming the human emperor's body into a form suitable for the Great Tao. At this moment, the Lord of Light could only hope that the transformation would fail and the human emperor would fall. That way, even if they couldn't capture the human race's luck, it didn't matter. At this moment, the Lord of Light was really scared. Split. Recombination. Split. Recombination. Zhan only felt as if he had suffered for several centuries, and even began to wonder if all of this was real. Until the great Tao's Sanskrit sounds disappeared, Zhan clenched his fists. Then he truly felt that all of this was real. Then, he looked at the emperors who were chasing him and grinned. It was all your fault that he was so painful. Then, an eye for an eye. Pay back 100-fold. Run. Run. An emperor's whole body shook, and an unspeakable sense of fear arose spontaneously from his heart. How was it possible? He was an emperor. Even a god couldn't make him so afraid. However, in the next second, he would know what kind of monster he would face. Zhan took a deep breath and easily punched out. Boom! Accompanied by this punch, the great Tao's Sanskrit sounds appeared again in an instant. Several emperors found in horror that they couldn't even dodge. They could only bear this punch. The first emperor to bear the brunt of the attack instantly disintegrated and couldn't resist this terrifying power of the great Tao of power at all. The power of the two sides was not on the same level at all. At this moment, Zhan was like a humanoid Tyrannosaurus Rex, and every wave of his hand was the power of the great Tao. There was no way around it. This power was too strong, and he couldn't hold it back a bit. But this feeling was awesome. Above the 9 heavens, the Lord of Light almost didn't think about it, and directly turned into a light and disappeared into the distance. The myriad races had lost. If they continued to fight, all the emperors would be slaughtered by the human emperor. Seeing this, where could the other divine-level beings still fight? They directly left as fast as possible. Only the demon race divine-level being was entangled by Azura Rakshasa and couldn't run away even if he wanted to. Chaotic Star Sea. As the divine-level beings fled, the myriad races collapsed in an instant, and all the emperors fled in all directions. Zhan was too lazy to chase. With his current strength, he didn't care much about the emperor level. He leaped up and directly jumped onto the 9 heavens. He wanted to avenge the palm he received on the ancestral star. After a while, the divine-level demon lord instantly fell under the siege, and the head was naturally taken by Zhan. The great Tao of power grew much stronger again. Then, Zhan flew to all the humans and said loudly, "We go home." Bonus Chapter 1. Ancestral Star, Slave Race. Earth. Worn and broken, everywhere were ruins. Yellow sand had almost swept through the entire world, as if there was no trace of life, like the end of the world. Above the sky, however, it was a different scene. Various magnificent and towering buildings floated in the air, like a fairyland. Above and below, heaven and earth, like two worlds. Around a high mountain, however, a large number of humans were constantly digging into the mountain with hoes and shovels. Their faces were haggard, and they only had a piece of rag to cover their bodies, dirty, dragging their tired bodies, but daring not to have any rest. There was no color in their eyes, living like zombies. Around them, there were various bizarre and ugly creatures holding weapons, constantly urging these humans to work. It was said that these ugly creatures were also humans in the past, but now they had become foremen who persecuted humans, the lackeys of those gods. "Mom, I heard that our human race also has an emperor. Will he come to save us? Is that right?" A little boy dragged a stone, but his eyes were different from others. There was still hope and light in his eyes. "The human emperor, he abandoned us?" Next to him, the little boy's mother pulled a car full of stones with all her strength and said numbly, 9 years ago, the human emperor was forced to flee in a hurry by the myriad races, and naturally did not have time to take away all the humans. There were still many people left on this ancestral star. Then, the myriad races directly occupied the ancestral star, and all the humans fell into slavery and food. At first, there were still some resistors among the human race. But in that final battle, the human emperor took away almost all the human race's elites, leaving behind only the weak. How could they resist the terrifyingly powerful myriad races? Gradually, all the humans had despaired and lived numbly. Humph! Human emperor? The human emperor has already died in the outer domain. The human race is gone. You are all trash, a bunch of food. All of you work hard. At this time, a fellow covered in thorns and extremely ugly threw out a thick chain and whipped the mother. He used to be a person, and even participated in that final battle. But so what? Now he was glad that he was not a human race, but became the glorious slave race. Slave of the slave. The myriad races allowed these traitors of the human race to form a new race, called the slave race. No, no, the human emperor is not dead. Our human race will not be destroyed. The little boy roared angrily, not paying attention that he had angered the guy in front of him, who could kill him easily. Haha, you little kid is quite interesting. What's your name? The slave race was not angry, but laughed heartily. These foremen were also very bored. These surviving humans were already almost walking corpses, and it was boring to torture them. Now it was not easy for someone with a bit of resistance to come out, so he had to have a good time teasing them. My name is Lu Yong, Yong of Courage. The little boy put his hands on his hips and said proudly, Lu Yong, ah, haha, what a good name. In between the slave race foreman's laughter, he suddenly grabbed the boy's mother and said with a smile, Lu Yong, come and tell me, the human emperor is dead? No, the human emperor will not die. Lu Yong's eyes were full of firmness. As a result, in the next second, the chain in the foreman's hand waved and whipped the mother's leg fiercely. The woman screamed and fell directly to the ground. The foreman looked at the little boy again and said with a smile, Tell me, the human emperor is dead? Lu Yong's face was pale. No matter how young he was, he understood what the monster in front of him meant. The other party was threatening him with his mother. Lu Yong gritted his teeth and still said firmly, The human emperor will not die. Pa. Ah. The scream sounded again, and the woman fell directly to the ground. Haha, this time. Is the human emperor dead or not? Lu Yong clenched his little fists, and he rushed over and hit the monster. But with his body, it was almost like scratching an itch. The foreman directly ignored him, while whipping the woman, while smiling and asking, Is the human emperor dead or not? Is the human emperor dead or not? Woo-woo. Don't hit my mom. Lu Yong directly lay on his mother's body, wanting to take these whips for her. However, this foreman just didn't hit him, but only hit his mother. Haha, good. As long as you say one sentence, the human emperor is dead, I will let her go. Lu Yong trembled all over, as if he had used up his last bit of strength, and roared. The human emperor is not dead. The human race will not be destroyed. In an instant, red light suddenly bloomed from his body, and a powerful aura actually emanated from the little boy's body. Zhang Yong stood up, and a giant sword actually appeared out of thin air in his hand. Just now, a voice had sounded in his mind. Ding! Congratulations on awakening the profession, Berserker. Reward weapon dragon sword. The foreman was a little dazed for a while. As a former human, he was naturally very familiar with this scene. Choosing a profession, a weapon appeared out of thin air in his hand. This little guy in front of him actually awakened a profession. He was a little surprised. Since the human emperor escaped, it seemed that he also took away the abilities of the professional. Above the ancestral star, there had been no professional for 9 years, and he didn't expect one to awaken in front of him. However, the foreman quickly reacted and was not worried at all. Just a level 1 professional who had just awakened. How strong could he be? Moreover, it was even more interesting to torture him after he awakened. Haha, this little thing is quite tough. The foreman continued to raise the chain and whip it down towards the woman on the ground. The woman already didn't have much breath, and this whip was probably enough to directly take her life. Ah! Lu Yong shouted and waved the giant sword suddenly. A blood-colored sword aura flew out from the giant sword and went straight away. With a boom sound, the powerful sword aura bombarded the foreman's body, but it didn't cause any damage at all. The slave race was originally a powerful human. After defecting to the myriad races and mutating, their strength greatly increased. How could Lu Yong be able to contend against them? However, at least, it stopped the whip that was drawn. Haha, there's actually a little guy who awakened a profession here. Huh, this skill, if I guessed right, it should be a berserker, right? After many years, the human race reappears with a professional. Should we report it to the master? Haha, why bother the master? I want to eat him. This meat should be good. Soon, a large group of slave race foremen surrounded them and surrounded Lu Yong, discussing. Lu Yong clutched the giant sword in his hand, trembling all over. but his face was full of perseverance, guarding his mother's side. The slave race didn't care at all. In their eyes, Lu Yong was food, a toy, an ant. They could pinch him to death with a wave of their hand. What they cared about was how to pinch this little ant to death. Was it eating? How to eat? Who should eat it? Listening to these ugly things wanting to put him in an oil pan, steam him, braise him in soy sauce, Lu Yong's face became paler and paler. But at this time, a strange energy suddenly erupted in his body. Lu Yong's momentum began to climb steadily, breakthrough, breakthrough, and breakthrough. Vast universe, outside the planet. Lu Zhan looked at the blue planet in front of him. It was already worn out and full of holes. I'm back. Bonus Chapter 2. The Power of Rules. The world's will is the heart of a world. The previous Lu Zhan was not strong enough, and he could only use the new world he created to hold people. But at this moment, bringing the world's will back to the ancestral star again, he realized what the world's will meant. It was like a control panel of a world, and everything that happened in this world could be controlled. Small to raining, thundering, large to earthquakes, storms. Lu Zhan could completely control all of this at will. He could even change the rules of this world. And rules were the embodiment of the essence of energy. In the previous ancestral star, its rules were technology, and the strength of humans depended on developing technology. After the end of the world broke out, the rules began to change and became a gamified world, allowing humans to become professionals. And he now could completely change the rules of the ancestral star. He could create spirit beasts and let humans become beast tamers. He could create martial souls and let humans become soul masters. He could create spiritual energy and let humans begin to cultivate immortality. The previous ancestral star only had a control panel, and it was even torn apart. It was equivalent to no one at home, and the lock was broken, and it was naturally allowed for outsiders to break in and plunder. It was different now. The home had an owner who could control everything. With one glance, Lu Zhan could see everything on the entire ancestral star. The numbness of the humans, the arrogance of the myriad races, the ugliness of the traitors. Just then, an excited look suddenly appeared on Lu Zhan's face, and he saw a scene. A little boy holding a giant sword, facing a dozen ugly fellows. He saw a familiar aura in this little boy. Is it Teacher Lu? Lu Zhan didn't act immediately, but moved in his heart. He modified some of the rules and directly injected a powerful force into the little boy's body. He now could easily kill any of the myriad races on the ancestral star, but he didn't. This was not his personal revenge, but the entire human race's revenge, so it naturally had to be completed by all the humans. Then, he officially flew to this blue planet. With a thought, the world and the world ring suddenly spread out. After a while, it actually merged with the ancestral star. The two were originally one world. Going home. We're going home. Damn it. Those trash actually made our home like this. Damn it. Those are our compatriots. What do they think our compatriots are? Die. 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 Kill them all. Those traitors. Those traitors are actually using chains to whip their former compatriots. They deserve to die even more than the myriad races. What's in the air? The god race? And the demon race? The demon race? These guys, do they still think they are superior? Your Highness Human Emperor, please order us to kill these alien races. My broadsword is already thirsty. Returning to the ancestral star, people cried with joy. But seeing the tragic scene, boundless anger boiled in their hearts. They needed to vent. They needed to kill. I am Lu Zhan, Human Emperor Lu Zhan. Today is the last day of the myriad races. My human race will once again become the supreme being of the universe, the ancestor of the myriad races. Kill this group of cheating ancestors and destroying ancestors. Lu Zhan's voice resounded throughout the entire ancestral star. In an instant, a trace of light appeared in the eyes of those numb humans, but then quickly went out. Human Emperor? The Human Emperor was beaten to run away in panic at the beginning. What could he do now that he's back? It's just to give away his head. As a result, at this moment, everyone felt a strange energy erupt in their bodies. Their levels began to increase, and their attributes began to increase. Their professions also underwent various changes. Life professions successively transferred to combat professions. and many combat professions directly advanced into hidden professions. Around the high mountain, Lu Yong shouted. A terrifying aura spewed out, and the giant sword in his hand instantly soared hundreds of meters and slashed down. Those slave races that surrounded him didn't even have time to react before they were all chopped into scum. Around them, light finally appeared in the eyes of the numb humans. It turned out that these human traders were so weak. What's going on? My power has become weaker. No, my ability has disappeared. Damn it, Master, save us. And those slave races were horrified to find that their strength had inexplicably weakened, as if they had been cursed. This was the power of rules. This was the human race's home field. As the human emperor, Lu Zhan only needed to press a button to improve the human race's strength and weaken the enemy's strength. Above the sky, following Lu Zhan's voice, those returning humans rushed towards those myriad races that were still high above, vowing to kill them all. In a magnificent aerial pavilion, dozens of women suddenly flew out and surrounded Lu Zhan. They were the god race's forces stationed on the ancestral star, led by a female emperor-level existence, Sasha. These dozens of emperor-level beings were her bodyguards. Each of them had the strength of a half-emperor, and each of them was tall, beautiful, and like flowers. With their powerful strength, they were known as the God Race Flower Team, and their fame resounded throughout the myriad races. Human Emperor, I didn't expect that you would dare to come back to die. A trace of suspicion appeared on Sasha's absolutely beautiful face. She also watched the last war in the sky. In her opinion, this human emperor's strength was like an ant. But now, she couldn't see through the other party's strength. Why was this? Could it be that his strength was too much stronger than hers? Impossible. It was only 9 years, which was just a blink of an eye. How was it possible? Haha, I've already tasted the fairies. I wonder what the taste of these goddesses is like. I haven't tasted it yet. How about this? I'll give you a choice. Stay and have children for me, and reward you with an extra year of life for each child you have. What do you think? I want to start a multi-child system. Lu Zhan's eyes wandered over these god race women. The fairies had a floating sense of immortality, but these so-called goddesses were like dolls, without a trace of life on their bodies, making people unable to muster the desire. It was said that the god race dedicated their body and mind to the true god in exchange for power. As for what the true god was, it was estimated that even the god race themselves couldn't explain it clearly. Presumptuous. How could Sasha not be angered by the human emperor insulting them like this? A white giant sword appeared out of thin air in her hand, and she said with a holy face, God said, use the holy sword to slay the filthy. In the next second, a breeze blew. Nothing happened. A trace of panic appeared on Sasha's face. What was going on? The divine arts had failed. How was this possible? Such a thing had never happened in the entire history of the god race. God said, use the holy sword to slay the filthy. God said, use the holy sword to slay the filthy. God said, use the holy sword to slay the filthy. Sasha said it 3 times in a row, but there was still no response. Now, she was completely panicked. Had the true god abandoned them? Around her, the goddesses of the bodyguard team also realized that something was wrong and successively began to use divine arts. But to their horror, all of the divine arts had failed. After a while, the entire sky was full of the sound of God said, which was very lively. People who didn't know would have thought that this was a debate competition. Enough, all of you shut up, it's so damn noisy. Lu Zhan roared angrily, and a terrifying aura spread out, making those goddesses totter. Ridiculous. In his territory, they still wanted to use some divine arts? Did they get his permission? When these guys used divine arts, he could clearly feel a strange power that he didn't know where it came from, wanting to enter the ancestral star. But the current ancestral star was not something that those messy things could enter if they wanted to, and they were all blocked by Lu Zhan. So these so-called divine arts naturally couldn't be used. Without divine arts, the so-called god race was just a stronger animal. Being roared at like this by Lu Zhan, all the goddesses looked at each other, and even Sasha's face was pale. She didn't know what had happened. Here, what the god says is useless, what I say is useful. Lu Zhan smiled and said, I say, you god race shouldn't wear any clothes. As soon as he finished speaking, the clothes on those god race women actually disappeared, and each of them was naked. Ah! A large group of goddesses screamed and covered their important parts. Although the god race had dedicated everything to the true god, they still had a sense of shame. How could they accept being naked like this in the air? I say, all the god race lose their voices. Zhan quickly said. So many women yelling together was about to shatter his eardrums. In the next second, the sky became quiet. This was the power of rules. In the territory of rules, rules override everything. At this time, the hearts of these goddesses were already full of fear. In an instant, including Sasha, they all scattered and fled. I say, the god race lose the ability to fly. Zhan didn't move and stood with his hands behind his back and said indifferently. In an instant, those goddesses who scattered and fled all fell from the sky and fell to the ground. Zhan didn't chase after them either. It was estimated that they wouldn't die from falling, but the god race who had lost their abilities should be left to the human race to kill and seek revenge. As for what he said about tasting just now, he was just talking. He didn't even know what the god race was, so he didn't dare to mess with them. He thought it was disgusting. A day later, above the ancestral star, all the alien races and traitors had been cleaned up, leaving none behind. Bonus Chapter 3. Cultivation is impossible. Ancestral star. It was now a bizarre sight. In one area, technology reigned supreme. There were cars flying in the air, humans wearing mechs flying, and all kinds of brightly lit skyscrapers. This area was named Tech City. In another area, it looked quite backward. People wore ancient clothes, and the houses were all quaint pavilions. But the people here walked on walls and even flew to heaven and earth. This area was called the Immortal World. In addition to these two major areas, there were also the home of anime, Cyberpunk City, Wasteland World, Pokemon Village, Naruto World, Pirate Capital, Daughter's Country, and other areas. It could only be said that Zhan was a very open-minded master. Regarding how to manage this planet, Zhan didn't have any major restrictions or rules and let it develop as it pleased. Humans could do whatever they wanted. As long as someone applied to him to allocate an area and create the energy rules they wanted, then a new world could be established. Of course, not just anyone could do it. They needed to have made great contributions to the human race. For example, the Blood Saber Old Ancestor applied to create a world called the Blade Domain, and it was said that there were fights there all day long. Yang Zhan, Lu Tianfu, and others also became the masters of their respective worlds. Now the human race had suffered heavy losses, and the number of people was small, so the huge ancestral star could naturally be developed as they pleased. He wasn't afraid that the number of humans would increase in the future. At that time, Zhan was confident that he would become the master of the entire universe. At that time, he wouldn't divide areas, but divide planets. One planet, one world. And above the 10,000-meter-high altitude of the ancestral star, there was a floating palace, which was Zhan's residence. At this moment, the throne in the palace hall was not occupied by Zhan, the planet's master, but by a woman, the undead monarch. As for Zhan, he was standing below, as well-behaved as a little rabbit. This old woman, she sits on top as soon as she comes, doesn't she put me in her eyes? One day, I will be on top of this woman. Zhan cursed angrily in his heart, but his face was respectful. How is your grasp of the origin of power? The undead monarch spoke slowly, and the air in the hall became a little colder. Lord Monarch, there is no manual or anything, so I'm not very clear. Zhan said with a look of ignorance. He wasn't pretending to be pure. He really didn't know. The power system of the myriad races was obviously no longer applicable to him. He had no clue whether he was now emperor level or divine level. Attack me with all your strength, the undead monarch said. She couldn't see through the human emperor's strength, so it was most direct to experiment. This, Lord Monarch, I dare not. Zhan quickly shook his head, with a look of fear. But in his heart, he was eager to try. He had wanted to do this for a long time. Less nonsense. The undead monarch snorted coldly. As a result, in the next second, Zhan's temperament had already changed drastically, like a towering mountain, with a terrifying aura coming towards them. He was waiting for you to say this. With a boom sound, Zhan punched forward, seemingly light and breezy, but it gathered his strongest force. In front of him, a huge fist shadow took shape and bombarded the undead goddess. In an instant, the wind and clouds changed color, and the entire palace shook violently. The undead monarch's face changed slightly. This kid had been plotting for a long time. This punch actually carried a trace of the meaning of the Great Tao. Under the Great Tao, everything was nowhere to hide. That is to say, she couldn't dodge this punch and had to face it head-on. In front of the undead monarch, a huge bone shield suddenly appeared. This was not an ordinary bone shield, but a super shield containing the origin of bone. If it were any emperor, it would not be able to break it even after a day and a night of chopping. Only the sound of boom was heard. The huge fist bombarded the bone shield, and with a thought, Zhan had already transferred everyone in this palace to the ground. In the next second, the terrifying force spread out, and the palace instantly turned into powder and scattered in the air. After a while, a sizzling sound rang out, and the bone shield began to shatter, but it was always just a little short, and the fist couldn't attack the undead monarch at all. A different color flashed in the undead monarch's beautiful eyes. Putting aside everything else, just the attack power had already surprised her quite a bit. Very strong. But it was not enough. Not far away. Zhan smiled evilly. Did you think that was it? You underestimated him too much. His fist was not only big and strong, but it could also fork. The giant fist in front of the bone shield suddenly scattered and turned into a dozen small fists, directly bypassing the bone shield, and bombarded the undead monarch in all directions from above, behind, below, left, and right. This move could be said to be extremely surprising, and everything was completed in an instant. Even the undead monarch couldn't react and was instantly submerged in the bombardment of the small fists. 3 seconds later, the bone shield disappeared, and the small fists disappeared. Zhan took a closer look and saw that the undead monarch was still standing above, but she was in an extremely embarrassed state. Her whole body was covered in scars, and her clothes were almost blown off. The undead monarch was a little dazed. How long had it been since she had been so embarrassed? Close to half dead. This feeling was really a bit wonderful. It even seemed to have a little bit of pain. Was that pain? She didn't know. She just had some aftertaste. Zhan gasped. Damn, this old woman is so terrifying. She only got hurt. He had to know that what was in front of him was just a projection of the undead monarch. He couldn't even kill the other party's projection. How terrifying would the main body be? No wonder the undead monarch didn't allow him to leave the world of the dead. Otherwise, if she came out, she might really be able to turn all the creatures in the universe into undead creatures and accompany her. But why was this old woman just standing there dumbfounded? Could it be that her head was broken? Lord Monarch, I offended you just now, Zhan said tentatively. Although he knew that the undead monarch couldn't kill him, if she got angry and wanted to retaliate and gave him some leather whips or something, it wouldn't be easy to endure. The undead monarch came back to her senses and waved her hand, and all the injuries instantly recovered, as good as before. It was just a projection. She only needed to transfer some power from the main body to recover it casually. You can now contend with those weaker divine-level beings and even kill them, but facing the stronger divine-level beings, it's probably not enough. The undead monarch said indifferently, without any emotional fluctuations. It's still too weak. When the spirit treasure opens, the myriad races will definitely move out in full force. At that time, it will be much more dangerous than in the Sea of Chaos. You probably can't defend the spirit treasure. At the time of the Sea of Chaos, it seemed that the divine-level beings of the top 10 races had all come, but it was only a part, maybe even less than 1/5. Over the past tens of thousands of years, the background of the top 10 races was unfathomable. All the preparations were for that moment when the spirit treasure exploded. Hearing this, Zhan sighed. How could he not know? What he was now worried about was this matter. He didn't know how to go further. Cultivation? That was nonsense. It took centuries or millennia. It was impossible to cultivate, and he couldn't do it in this life. There was no shortcut to the top, so he could only kill the myriad races to level up. But now, it wasn't easy to kill. Bonus Chapter 4. The Immortal Race. The undead monarch naturally saw Zhan's thoughts and said directly, Your current strength, killing the emperor-level beings, is already ineffective. You must kill the divine-level beings. Zhan nodded and looked at the beautiful woman with wide eyes, pitifully, and said, Lord Monarch, why don't you catch a few divine-level beings and let me kill them? The undead monarch narrowed her eyes. Even though she was an emotionless dead person, at this moment, she couldn't help but have the urge to strangle this kid to death. Catch a few divine-level beings? Damn it. Did he think they were rabbits? Last time, they had planned many times and had two helpers, the immortal race and the Azura race, before they designed to kill a wood divine-level being. Most importantly, now the myriad races were clear that the human emperor had risen, and it was through killing. To put it bluntly, those divine-level beings didn't dare to wander around alone, for fear of being caught by the human emperor. The current universe could be said to be unprecedentedly peaceful. The myriad races were staying in their own planets, waiting for the spirit treasure to explode. If Zhan wanted to kill divine-level beings, he had to kill them in their territory. However, the myriad races would never sit back and watch the human emperor become stronger again. His every move was being watched closely. If he killed him, I'm afraid that the myriad races would do everything possible and mobilize all the divine-level beings to snipe and kill him, unless it was unexpectedly, so that the myriad races didn't have time to react. But how could such a major event of killing divine-level beings in someone else's house be silent? For a time, Zhan and the undead monarch were silent. It was difficult. However, as they were silent, the undead monarch's eyes suddenly stopped on little Zhan. Zhan immediately shuddered. His face changed slightly. Lord Monarch, what do you want to do? Although I'm yours, I'm not ready yet. The undead monarch said blankly and said indifferently, This thing of yours will cause trouble sooner or later. I'm considering whether to help you cut it off and solve your worries. This guy, under the banner of no heroine, had opened an unknown number of harems and was definitely a disaster. The undead monarch vaguely remembered that when she was still human, she had heard countless news about how many big figures were harmed by women. Hearing this, Zhan's face changed greatly, and he quickly patted his chest and guaranteed, Don't, Lord Monarch. Don't worry, I will never let my little head control my big head. Then, he asked tentatively, Lord Monarch, are you worried about that immortal race? The undead monarch would naturally not make some jokes for no reason, and there must be something to say this. After thinking about it, Zhan could only think that this fairy had been on him too frequently some time ago. The undead monarch nodded. The immortal race is ill-intentioned. Sure enough, Zhan said with a smile. Lord Monarch, don't worry. I know these things. That old thing Manhwa is always thinking about seducing me. I won't let her on. I don't know what the immortal race is planning, but I will definitely not believe them. As for sending some little fairies, it would be a waste not to be on them. I still have this confidence. Since you know it yourself, I won't say more, but if something goes wrong, I'll make you unable to be an undead creature. The undead monarch snorted coldly and disappeared into the air. Zhan waved his hand, and a brand new palace appeared directly in the air. Speaking of which, the immortal race hadn't sent any fairies over for many days, and he didn't know what they were doing. The immortal world. The world where the immortal race was located. Cloudy mountains, waterfalls, rainbows spanning between them, cranes flying, Ganoderma and exotic flowers and herbs everywhere, and ancient palaces floating in the air in the distance. The sun shone through the clouds, casting a golden light, a real fairyland on earth. In the most magnificent palace. At this moment, all the divine-level existences of the immortal race were gathered. Including Miao Shan and Miao Hua, there were actually 8 of them. The immortal race only revealed 4 divine-level beings on the surface, and even if there was any concealment, it was only 1 or 2. I'm afraid no one would have thought that the immortal race actually had a full 8 divine-level beings, which was terrifying. At this moment, these 8 top existences in the universe all looked nervous, staring at a fairy on the bed. A weak and ordinary fairy. The human emperor should have noticed something. Damn, this guy wraps up his essence every time he does things. It goes out but doesn't go out. It doesn't stay in the fairy's body. He just enjoys himself and doesn't want to be responsible. You guys are too hasty. It's hard not to make people suspect. I still underestimated the human emperor. In such a dangerous situation, I thought that the human emperor would be extremely eager for strength. How could he not take this shortcut if he had it? I didn't expect it. I didn't expect it. He could actually endure it. What's even more unexpected is that he actually turned danger into safety and solved the dead end. But even if the human emperor is more cautious, he was still caught by us. There are always mistakes, and this is it. It still left a drop. This is our chance. We should be able to give birth to it. The 8 divine-level beings discussed. The fairy they were watching was giving birth. That's right. It was giving birth to a child. 8 divine-level beings at the peak of the universe were watching a woman give birth, which was really unique and shocking. It was because this was the human emperor's son. The myriad races wanted to plunder the human race's luck, and they all wanted to capture the human emperor. Only the immortal race had taken a different approach. The human emperor bore the human race's great luck, so the human race's son could naturally inherit it as well. It was even more pure. Because the human emperor rose halfway, he could obtain the human race's luck. Once the human emperor's son was born, he would be the son of the human race's luck. The stronger the fairy's strength, the stronger the human emperor's son she gave birth to, and the more human race's luck she had. If she could give birth to hundreds or thousands of them, then it was damn scary that she could take all of the human race's luck. At that time, the immortal race would directly replace the human race and become the spirit of all things, the supreme being of the universe, and the spirit treasure would also be in the immortal race's pocket. To this end, the immortal race had even degraded its identity and humiliated itself, calling all the fairies the human emperor's cauldrons. It was a pity. They underestimated the human emperor. Or rather, the arrogance in the immortal race's bones made them look down on any other race. What god race, demon race, and dragon race were all trash. They were just disdainful to compete. The human race? That was even more like ants. They gave a little to the human emperor, and the human emperor had to kneel down to ask for it. Who would have thought that the other party would disdain it at all, and be on guard everywhere? They didn't even touch the stronger fairies. Even the weaker fairies didn't leave anything behind. They were very ruthless. Then, several gods tried all kinds of ways and finally let a fairy leave a drop. It was this drop, and they tried all kinds of ways to let it develop, and the fairy's stomach was finally big. At this moment, it was the time of birth. Looking at the fairy who was in extreme pain, the 8 divine-level beings were actually a little nervous. As long as this child was born, even if there was only one, the immortal race would already be ahead of the myriad races. They would definitely be able to get a share of the spirit treasure, and it could be said that they were shouldering the hopes of the immortal race.